Well, hello and good evening, everybody. It's DH Thorne coming at you here live with a new friend. We are going to call them Maiden Liberty, although I think I usually say Maiden of Liberty because I have like a syntax and grammar issue. So let's all say hi to Maiden Liberty and let her introduce herself. Who are you, Maiden?
Who am I? Well, I've been watching you for like about a year now, and then recently one of my subscribers hit you up, and now a week later, here I am. And let me just say this. I haven't been doing live streams in a long time. It's been like 2, 3 years. So I'm kind of getting in the groove of things. It's like a whole new participation. So compared to the chat, it's going to be something else. But hi, chat. I can't see you right now, but I'm saying hi anyway. So how y'all doing?
Yeah, the chat will pop up on the live feed screen. But if you want to, if you have another window open, you can do it. Just make sure you mute the stream. Otherwise, it's going to echo something fierce. Okay. So I will read the good comments anyway. So let's see here. So we got a lot of people. Let's say hi to everybody first. Okay, we got George Coggins. He's almost always here and he's blowing up the chat with some cool shit. We have Order of the Black Dragon. He's probably going to be talking about Shinamasta, and he's high on ganja again. What's up, Order of the Black Dragon? Good to see you, brother. Kelly Meadows. We love Kelly. How you doing, Kelly? Wyatt Coverdale, the man, the myth, the legend in his own mind, but he's also quite famous around mine. Welcome, Wyatt. We miss you, brother. I'm glad you're back. Jason, happy Thorne's Day. Jason, we got to hang out soon, but you know, we're both busy. I get it. McKinney 99, I blame you for this, and I think Maiden does as well. They say, I don't know if it's a he, I think it's a he, says drinking, it's a guy, okay. Drinking game every time she steers it back to politics, take a sip. You think it's going to be just Maiden that does that?
Cheers, Christina. Cheers.
I know, I need some booze. I don't want to drink because I get stupid when I drink.
Cheers.
Plus I'm on keto, so booze hits 10 times harder.
Oh.
Which is good, but it's bad. Let's see. Julie, what's up, Julie Bonilla? What's up? She says, what's up? She liked my last, I think, live stream very much, and I appreciate that. We were talking about aliens and the whole works. Yeah. Skeleton Power says hail and gives us either a fist bump. I believe it's the horns, though. Yeah. Patchy's here. What's up, Patchy? Listening while at work. Be careful while at work. Don't do anything I would do. And Artful Notion is here. Now, if you are just joining us, the way that these chats work, if you're new here. Oh, and River of Souls is here. What's up, River? The way this works is this is an open, ask me anything kind of dialogue. Of course, we're going to rant and converse and all that stuff. But I do read your comments. And if you want us to, we'll say, talk about your comments, then what I recommend is, of course, pick your questions and comments carefully. Like Wyatt just like pours a lot out, and I've got to pick the ones that I want to respond to. But give us your good comments and questions. If you want us to riff on them or comment on them, the best way to do that, top of the list, is Super Chat. We will, of course, respond to those first. And if we reach a certain threshold, I always share with my guests. So if you want to make sure Maiden gets paid for this, get us up to $100 because that's my threshold because of the taxes work. But then I split it down the middle, whatever comes off after the tax, because I don't get paid unless I hit a certain amount. Number 2, you can give us all caps comment, or you can @ me. If you @ me or all caps it so that I'm more likely to see it, I'm more likely to comment on it. You do not have to super chat, but that goes to the top of the list pretty much with few exceptions. So, all right, Maiden, let's start with it. Do you prefer to be called Maiden Liberty, or do you have a preferred name that you want me to remember? Because I'm terrible at remembering.
No, Maiden Liberty is how I go by. So everyone calls me Maiden. I'm used to it, so it's rock and roll.
Okay, good. Now you are trapped there in, we shall say, True Dope Land, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I think you wanted to sort of talk about the some of that, especially as it pertains to like what you see happening in the States and what we're seeing happening there and all of this. And we'll talk about that. I do want to talk about it because I think a lot of people are scared, upset, mad. And I think in Canada, at least me, I'd be more scared if I'm being honest. You know, because I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen here. I don't know how it's going to play out in other places, because my understanding is that this is global, what is happening on both sides, but it's also an understanding that the bad guys, shall we say, are going to have certain strongholds in places that they're going to try to retain for years to come, while the white hats take them down. And you're going to have some countries, especially Western nations, that they are still embedded in, that will take longer to get out from under it than others. That's what my prognosis is. So those of you who are going to be in the Northern Iron Curtain there, take heart, but rise up peacefully, especially once you start seeing it go down here. Demand change. You got to stop going along to get along. The truckers were right. That's my opinion. But anyway, and we're going to talk about spirituality and magic, of course, because that's, that's the centerpiece of this. Because as I was explaining to someone in a thing recently, they were like, why do you talk about this stuff? If you cannot call yourself a genuine occultist, it's my opinion, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people would back me up. You cannot call yourself a genuine occultist if you do not run into the cabal, as we call it, the New World Order, the underground secret societies. You do not get anywhere in this study. You can be a bookworm and read all these books, but if you're really practicing and if you're really diving deep, it's only a matter of time before you come face to face with the fact that the cabal, New World Order, is interlaced with all of this to a degree that is obscene. And when you see it, you can't unsee it. And when you realize it, you go, oh, shit. So it's sort of like if you like guns, you're automatically political. Because if you like guns, you automatically have a political opinion. So in a very similar sense, if you're into these things legitimately, as a intellectual at least, you're going to run into, as a practitioner and an intellectual. I don't mean if you're just into like practicing some Wicca or whatever. I don't mean that. I mean, if you're into the hardcore, secret society, high level, esoteric stuff. To be clear, and I don't mean to offend any Wiccans. I love all you guys who are rational. I don't consider that esoteric. I consider that rather exoteric, actually, with esoteric influence. Okay. I think that esotericism to me is the hidden. That is the shit that does not come out in the open. It is the stuff that is, some people like me are Promethean. We like to just, oh, that's a secret? Good. Take it, everybody. Here, that was a good secret you had. Not because we're breaking oaths or anything, but because certain things should not be secret. Like, the secret to the universe. That shouldn't be secret. I'm sorry. So anyway, Makame says Wiccans are incarnated Baptist ministers. Okay.
Well, so let me put it to you this way with McMina, because I don't want to make him feel like he's being singled out, but he's not too far from Portland, and from what it is I read, Portland is one of the best places to be a Wiccan/witch and all that shit. So probably true.
It's definitely a place that is becoming like the new California, LA.
Oh my god.
And maybe it always has been. Now, to be fair, a big part of me resonates with West Coast, moderate West Coast mentality, right? I think the West Coast is gorgeous. I'm all for the freedom of, substances, natural substances. I don't know how I feel about, designer drugs per se, because that to me is more like, hey, let's just make poison legal. No, I don't know. But as a libertarian, I'd rather not be involved in black market shit. I would rather that we have other ways around it, which means I'd rather make it legal and then let's walk it back from there. So I'd rather it be regulated in the positive sense, like, it's legal, but you got to be 18 or 21 or whatever, then you can't touch it at all. And especially for the natural stuff. So West Coast people, if you're not a crazy woke chop chaz type of weirdo, we're probably cool. If you're one of those people that thinks everything's a microaggression, you're probably not on my channel. So I can curse you out if I want, and you probably won't even know. So, yeah.
Well, before we get to the politics, I just thought of like one question. Do you happen to have like any friends or anybody that's a Christian and they practice occultism? Because I don't see too many of those in my periphery.
Personally, in real life, no. Online, to a degree, yes. Let's break that down for one moment.
Okay.
If you look at, say, Golden Dawn, if you look at Rosicrucianism, if you look at a lot of these Western esoteric mystery schools that still exist that are open enough that you can hear about them, the Masons. There is absolutely Christianity still in it. If you look, you know, the cross is there. They have things that they talk about with Jesus and all this stuff. But are they Christian? So where do we draw the line between what is Christian and what's not? Do you mean Orthodox Christianity? Absolutely no, because they're a mainstream cult of mind control. It's Matrix 1.0 from the Piscean Age. They basically took the dualistic Piscean, because Pisces it's always considered the spiritual thing. It is spiritual, but if you look at the symbolism of Pisces, it is two fish bound together by a cord. So it's dualism in a tied together, can't think of the word.
Figurative form, in a symbolic form.
Yeah, in a symbolic form, they are tied together. They're not free, right? It's like authoritarian dualism. Okay. At least you have to understand, every one of these signs has a light and a dark, right? Well, we went the dark way. The last time around when we had a turning of an age, we went dark. So we went the dark path. We went the dark dualism of bondage. That's the word I was looking for, of dualistic bondage. And so we had dualistic religions conquer the world. And that was the last operating system of the societal matrix that they kept us controlled through. So you have Orthodox religion made its debut and conquered the world through Roman, stuff, through all this. And it happened around the world. Okay. People who go like, oh, the West is just garbage. If you look at the East, yes, you will find that fundamentally it's a more open spiritual culture usually, but that doesn't mean they don't have their orthodoxy and their dogmatists and their bullshit. They definitely do. They don't get up to as much sectarian violence as people in Western cultures used to do, but they do. They still do. You still see, one sect of Buddhists doesn't get along with this sect, or they disagree, and some have rivalries going back 1,000 years or so, and they've come to terms. That's why I like just people like I like the Vedanta Society of New York, because they don't get into the us versus them. They explain it all, and they give you an interpretation of it, and they leave it up to you to figure out. So in the West, you had the original Christianity. I mean, you have to understand, Abrahamism is so corrupt. There's a guy, what's his name? Paul something or other. He's usually on the Fifth Kind YouTube channel. Former pastor who knows his Bible back to front. And he also works with a guy who worked for the Vatican, doing literal translations of the ancient texts. So in other words, it's not just what we think it meant through interpretation or theistic interpretation. It's just, what did the literal ancient text say in context etymologically? If you read the Bible that way, the whole narrative of Abrahamism collapses in on itself. Yes, the Kabbalah is still valid, by the way, but the whole, dogmatic, there's this deity and we've got to do this and blah, 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 that all collapses into its own footprint, because it's not one deity, it's the Elohim, and the Elohim is plural. It's not a singular deity. It's basically the Anunnaki. You have to understand that the ancient people that would become what we call the Jews today were Canaanites, they were Semitic, they were Babylonian, they were of that culture. They once upon a time had a whole pantheon of deities that included the more recent forms of Enki, Enlil, all of them, okay? The updated, because you have to remember, ancient Sumer is like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years removed from when Judaism really starts to hit. So when it starts to hit, originally, the ancient Jews, if you went into their little huts and stuff, they didn't just have a Yahweh statue, they had the whole pantheon in there, and they might have preferred Yahweh. Okay. And what was Yahweh? Well, it's not even the name of a deity. It's like, well, there's some people who say you can actually translate it so that it means something draconic, actually. I won't go into that because that's a little flaky and weird to me, but we'll just say that that's in there. So once you walk this forward, you get to the period of Christ, you're talking about a guy who, if we trust the lore, was a rabbi. which means he was educated on rabbinical stuff like the Torah. He was educated on Kabbalah. And if you read your Kabbalah correctly, you know that that is a Semitic form or a Western form that is very resonant with non-duality, because non-duality is resonant with all of these mystical things. I don't want to say that non-duality came first, because non-duality as we have it today is like from the year 400, 500, or 600 in India. But the belief goes that it's actually much older than that. It just took until then for Shankara to write his commentaries that made it more formal. But if you read your Hermetic tradition, if you read your Kabbalah, if you read any of these things, you recognize that we're talking about one thing that has three natures, or one nature and three words, or three, your Holy Trinity is what we're talking about. That Holy Trinity is really one thing. The Christians screwed that up by calling it, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost as three separate but one. It's not three figures. It's not three people. It's the equivalent of, in the non-dual linguistic terminology, existence, consciousness, bliss, or existence, consciousness, completion, totality, fulfillment is probably the best word of all, because fulfillment is like bliss, right? Mm-hmm. Or love, or whatever, completion. So that last word's a little fuzzy because there's no easy translation for Anand, right? For Ananda. So it's Sat Chit Ananda in Sanskrit. And I don't speak Sanskrit or read it, so I'm going off of other people's translations. Mm-hmm. But what we're talking about is the same absolute, the Ein Sof, the Ein Sof, Ein Sof Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Sat Chit Anand, Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. You're talking about the same Trinity, salt, sulfur, mercury. It's the same thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. And they're all talking about the same thing. It's the same thing. So like when we non-dualists say consciousness is the fundamental nature of reality, we're not saying that reality is just our defined word consciousness. That's a misunderstanding. If I said it's consciousness, you'd go, oh, well, the dictionary says consciousness means that, so reality is that? No. We're saying that word points at it most effectively. Whatever that is, our word consciousness is the most direct word that aims your attention at it. So you can go, oh, that's what it is. That's what reality is. Everything is a reflection of that. So what does Christ mean? Christ steps forward as this figure trained in rabbinical understanding, probably rubbed elbows with some Buddhists and shit, because in that era, when people think that, like, people have this weird thinking that if you're in the Middle East at that time, if you're in Galilee or whatever at that time, the only people there are, no. You have to understand, in the ancient world, people got around, maybe not as easily as today, but if you don't think that there was people that were like traveling the world to explore, to be merchants, especially mystical type people, like people that have a message to spread or a world to explore, to learn about. You have to understand, especially there, that was a crossroads of many civilizations, was the Middle East at that time, that whole area. So a lot of cultures in that whole Mediterranean, why do you think the word chakra that we use for the chakras is a Greek borrowed word, kakra, which means wheel? All of these things are interconnected. You can actually, like, this is what drives me crazy about modern interpretations of these things, whether they're by the academia or just idiots like us. It bothers me when people isolate these things as if they are their own, because people are so scared of offending cultural appropriation. People don't realize that the ancient world didn't have this problem. They very happily intermingled when they could or when they had to. They shared ideas. They didn't go, oh, you're appropriating my bullshit. Mm-hmm. They were like, yes, let's share. What did you know? What did you know? And as you find out, if you really do the deep dive with comparative mythology, religion, all that, they all agree way more than they disagree. They just use different words for things, and it throws people off. They think it's different, but it's not. It's the same ideas over and over, just said differently. So what does Christ do? He shows up and says the Old Testament's bullshit. He doesn't say it quite like that. We don't know what he said because most of his sermons are not recorded. We just know what Timothy, Mark, Luke, John, all these people had to say about him, supposedly. So we don't know, really. We just know what they reported. But there are hints in what he said that he rebuked a lot of the Old Testament. He said that was wrong. He pointed out that God would not have abandoned his children when, all these, I forget the exact line. I don't memorize scripture, But there is a line where Christ is very clearly saying that God would not abandon his children just because of these petty things, okay? So Christ came along to teach humanity that the divine is accessible, the divine is at hand, the divine is within all. All you need to do is reach out. All you need to do is seek forgiveness. What does that actually mean? You have to understand forgiveness. Who are you asking for forgiveness if you're asking the divine? Right? Who are you asking? Well, if you understand that we are all children of the divine, and when he said children, it's the classical understanding of the word, not the literal meaning of the word. The classical understanding of the word child or son of or daughter of is not possessive, like they own you and they made you, more like your finger is a child of your hand, an extension of. So when Jesus was saying, I am the Son of God, he was also saying you are too. Okay, he was saying we're all manifestations of God, and that God is within all, of course, because God is consciousness. So this understanding was what he was trying to teach. And then the orthodoxy of Rome, the authoritarian orthodoxy of Rome said, the only way to the Father is through me. They inserted lines, I guarantee it. I am willing to bet if I had a time machine, I could find the fucker that put that in there and beat him over the head, because I guarantee you that was added. I'm willing to bet that was probably added. And if it wasn't added, it was just twisted some way, because it does not fit at all. It doesn't fit his message of peace, love, and transformation and forgiveness. Jesus was not about hard judgment. Jesus was about chances and forgiveness and opening. That doesn't mean anything goes. You know, I would never claim that. I think that there is a line in the sand where there's some things that are just don't work, right? You can't achieve enlightenment if all you're doing is trying to be rich or something, right? You can't, I shouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So what does that have to do with all this? Well, fast forward to today, and you realize that everything that Christians believe that puts them at odds with people like us is because of a dogmatic brainwashing, just like the New World Order puts on people with woke propaganda and all this shit. They demonize the other, and they create these narratives of austerity and strict rules and judgment. And if you don't think this way, you're a sinner. And so they create this narrative that if you don't think the way we want you to, you must die. And in fact, the most terrible irony of all is that if not for the organized Orthodox Roman Christian interpretation and its tendency towards, shall we say, insecurity and a desire to control through force and coercion and fear, we would not have the institutionalized bullshit that we have today, because it was really pioneered in many respects by the Catholic Church, this system of mind control, because they figured out that you can control people much more effortlessly and in a much bigger field of space. Instead of a military that goes around shooting everybody or stabbing everybody, if you convince people that if they think the wrong things, they're going to hell or will get excommunicated and die, or some combination of that, it is a threat that cannot be stopped, because you're ignorant, you're a peasant, you've been taught that your pagan traditions that you grew up with or had in your history were bad, you were a sinner, the only way out is this way. And so they get you into a thought crime scenario. It's literally the birth of thought crime was the Catholic Church, at least in our recorded of history. I'm not saying no other culture does it. I'm just saying they did it best. They mastered it, and everything that they mastered, if not for the Inquisition, we would not have had any of the horrors of the last 200 years or so when it comes. And I know people go like, stop blaming the Christians. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming those people in the past, that people are still blind to the realization that because of them, you were able to have Marxist thought crime, Nazi thought crime. In other words, people who would say you have the wrong thoughts, you must be silenced. And if it wasn't for that, maybe we still would have discovered it, but they really got it. They got the formula. And that's part of the problem that we're in. And unfortunately, the reason that it was done was because it's effective. It's very effective, you know? So how do we stop it? Well, just information isn't enough. You've got to change the way people approach thinking and information. You've got to deprogram them from this spirit of, we'll say, conformity or fear-based mind control. You've got to get people like what's the wise saying? Schools teach people not how to think, but what to think. And that's the problem. We have an entire society that is so focused on controlling what you think rather than helping you to think clearly and then giving you the reasons why your ideas are better and letting it win on the merits. We want people to just conform because it's a lot easier and quicker. It's quick and dirty, it's brute force, and it works. It's savage as fuck. And it works. But if humanity was taught how to think, we wouldn't be in any of these problems. People would have a good amount of discernment because they would know how to question. Like I said on Facebook today, we are taught we're taught to be skeptical, but not of the establishment, of everyone who challenges it. That's what we're taught to be skeptical of. And people like me who are skeptical of the establishment, we're called crazy. So, all right, what do you think of that, mate? Now that I've chewed.
Look, I think you pretty much just explained a very crucial secret that is keeping everybody divided and conquered. You're more similar than you are different. Mind you, differences are going to happen anyways, but we're so preoccupied on those differences more so to make the person, the other, to be in that category. Now, in terms of what you were saying, demonizing people, to me, it's superstitious nonsense that hasn't been broken. And then people are wondering, why are these things still happening? It's like people haven't learned from history. Superstition isn't going to help you out in that regard. And the other thing I would add in terms of the Christian thing, and this is, I still see it even with myself to some degree. Anything that is not, people don't like, they'll say you're racist. Or if you're talking to a Christian who's becoming superstitious, they'll say you're satanic.
Oh, everything's satanic. If they understood what Satan was, they wouldn't say it.
But that's the thing. Even if you try to explain it, which is why I don't bother getting into these conversations with some of these people. And this is where I don't know if we're going to disagree, because, again, my selfishness is going to come out. So I'm going to have to put it out there, but I'll just let you.
No, it's fine.
Oh, no.
I will fix you live on air, or you'll fix me. Either way, it'll be fun.
Will do. But the thing is, I don't bother with that. Like, for a long time, and I grew up in the 90s. I heard this all my life. I didn't understand. I was terrified of this archetype of Satan and Lucifer. But I was always confused. What's the difference? Why are they used interchangeably? And now I've gotten older. I'm not as afraid. I have a better understanding, and it doesn't bother me. The weird shit doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is when you try to explain this to people and you want to pass on that knowledge and you want to try to reassure said person that it's not what you think it is, but you're aware that, hey, it's their perspective that's going to stop them from seeing what it is that you're going to try to explain, it's hard to get through to them, which is why, for me, I don't waste my time. And this is where I'm going to come in with my selfishness. For me, the last 3 years has kind of, as we said before the live stream, that vindictiveness has kind of gone a little bit hardened. I'm aware of that. And in my mind, I'm worried about my survival, my own personally. But that doesn't,
especially where you are, because if it does take a while to get normal, if it does take a while to get fixed up there, you may have to you may have to board up the windows, so to speak, because it may get crazier there than here. Well,
listen, I understand that. But for me, it's like, look, I only worry about my liberties. I only worry about myself. And when I have enough energy, I'm willing to have an open hand for somebody else in case if they want it. I'm okay with that. But the thing is, how does one who has this Promethean philosophy deal with what you guys are seeing in Canada? You see, that's my own personal grievance right about now, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
it's very difficult. And I realized, you know what, there's two ways I could go about it. I could leave. I could leave and say, life is too short. I got other things to do and things I'd like to achieve. But the other thing is, if I stay and I realize the struggle is part of that journey to that enlightenment, whatever the case is, then yeah, you got to fight. But it's a weird predicament, to be quite honest. It's very weird. And even when you try to talk to some people on Twitter, again, like I realize it's just the internet. You don't know who's authentic and who isn't.
Yep.
I don't bother with that anymore. Even people in real life, I just worry about my energy and say, I don't deal with that. I don't know if you've noticed, I don't deal with any e-drama on YouTube. I've been on this for 10 years. Never once did I bother with any e-drama. It doesn't do anything for me. I'm just online. It's a part of my life. And then I close it. I just do my own thing. That's it. It has no bearing. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing either way, whether online, whether you're in person. So I was just what I love about this, and I'm glad that my subscriber reached out to you, is because despite us having that border, despite you being in New York State and despite me being in Canada, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's affecting both sides. And liberty, I've always said this, liberty doesn't know no borders. People want to be left alone.
Yep. Most people want to be left alone. Some people are literally, birdcage motherfuckers that they want to be taken care of. And they don't understand that, the worst possible way to do that is through a centralized government authority. You can argue that you need to regulate corporations. I don't always agree with those arguments, but I understand them. But you can't argue that government does it better. It just never works. The only ethical role of government is to protect human rights. That's it. Human rights and to enforce contract. That's basically it. So, when it comes to that, there's not much else that I would argue that they're safe to do. I'm not an anarchist. I'm a minarchist, right? I don't believe in zero government. I believe in minimal government. Mm-hmm. And minimal government to me is just enough to make sure I can't just haul off and kill you, or that if you break a contract with me, I can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. Government is there to administer, not to rule. And we're not there as a species yet where we can just be anarchistic. And part of the reason for that is because there is a lack of shall we say, science fiction technology released to the public, which they do have, but they won't release it, that has free energy and all of that shit. If we had as they would say, come on, brain, what's the word for it? Post-scarcity. If we were in a post-scarcity civilization, basically type 1 civilization, we'll say, we would not need virtually any of the bullshit that we have going on. Economically, I wouldn't give a shit whether you were socialist, capitalist, or whatever, because at that point, the economic system would change because it's not scarcity based anymore, and the power elite could not rule us with crises of scarcity anymore. So you could no longer have a situation where people say, do this or else, because there's no or else to be given to them. It is literally like the air, right? Imagine a world where your cell phone bill is your energy bill, and it covers everything. Right? Everything. I don't just mean like your house. I mean your car, everything is like $60 a month and you're good. Everything. Okay. Just like the internet, you have a bandwidth limit, sure, but it's huge. You don't care. It's a deep well you can draw from. The whole world would change overnight. People would no longer have anywhere near the same burdens that they have. That's just the energy sector. When you realize that there is ways to take that and pump it into other technologies to have, especially when you have AI, which they already have. Don't give me the bullshit that they're developing it. They already have it. They've had it probably for 50, 60 years already. Same thing with like warp drive and all. They had it, guys. I know I sound insane, but when you peek deep enough behind the curtain, it's really hard to deny that they have it, because they're really, 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 really jealous about keeping it controlled and hidden. The way that they keep it. Oh no, we don't have anything like that. No, we never. Shoot them down if they cross over this place where we keep that stuff. It's so. Anyway, the point is that we are repressed. These people that are ruling us or have been ruling us, I don't think they are anymore. Or at least I don't think they will be much longer. These people that have been ruling us, they do so by withholding. That is how, if you think about it, control or power is not a positive attribute. In other words, people think that power is like, I've got more juice in my battery, right? That's what they think power means. No, power is the ability to limit. That is what power really means. Real power is not, I can do. Real power is, you can't do because I said so. That's real power, okay? Now, you can say that's not real power, and I understand what you mean, but I'm saying in our world that we live in, power as we use it is limitation. You can control the forces. You can limit what they can do. And if you can limit a river, right, if you can dam it up, now you've got a power plant. You don't have a power plant if the river's just flowing without any limitations. You have to block it off. In a similar sense, control systems of our world, they're not powerful because they enable you. They're powerful because they restrict you. They're not even being enabled. They're not even being empowered by something that's making them. They're stronger because they can sit on top of you. Think of a bully. Think of a big tough guy. Is a tough guy stronger than you because he's just strong? No, it's because he can sit on your chest and make you cry uncle. But if you don't give up, it doesn't matter how much he hurts you, he doesn't have power over you. It's you're giving him power by saying, yes, please don't hurt me. That's power. It's not that he's stronger than you, it's because you quit. It's because you let him rule you. So they do this to us. They limit everything. They don't let us have things so that they can then steer us where they want.
Yeah.
They can cause droughts. They can, you know, cut off food supplies, energy supplies. And what they do is they generate crises, especially crises of, you know, resources. And they use that to control everybody. So how do you beat that? Well, you take that power away by decentralizing all of the technology, all of the stuff that they have. You release it into the wild, or at least let the people who manage to invent it next get away with it, not kill them like they usually do. But they've had this stuff going back 100 years, maybe 200 even, if you really, you know, the first UFO sightings we'd recognize are like, you know, 1,000 years ago, a couple thousand years. Then you get the biblical ones. All of this stuff has been with us for a long time. People have either known or had this. I think that in the late 1800s, they started really getting it again, because I think up till then they were still reeling from the calamity that split the world up and made it into the savage place it was. But as civilization started to centralize and grow globally again, at that point, the powers that be came together and said, look, I've got this old library of knowledge, and the Vatican has what's left from Alexandria and all this. They took it all and said, okay, this is where this secret's buried. This is where the Ark is. This is where, and they went and they started consolidating. This is what Hitler did. If you study your bad guy from World War II lore, including the parts that society would frown upon, and you look at the other side, if you look at the Nazi UFO cult shit, you start to see, like, we're not being told some things here that are really important, because whether they're real or not, if they're even 10% real, that's a big deal, because they found things, they had things, they were working on things. Indisputably, there's pictures of them. We know that they had these things. Where did they get the ideas? Where did they get it from? Who's Maria Orsic? Where is all this stuff going, and where did it end up? Why don't we hear about it except for the conspiracy theory people? Meanwhile, it's interlaced in the lore. If you know where to look, it's not hidden. Bottom line, around 100, 150 years ago, they got back on the ball, and ever since they have been building up their power base. And at some point they achieved type 1 for themselves, shall we say. It's not really type 1, but they achieved that level, and then they went further and further until now. If you really want to know, the power elite are basically living Star Trek level, you know, and the people we see as the power elite, those are low-level henchmen that are just following orders. These Klaus Schwabs, all these people, these are dummies on the end of strings that are very long strings. And we at most, I wouldn't even say at most, I would say at most, but I'm actually going to lower was I was going to say we see like second or third level. No, we're probably like sixth level down. If you really like the highest guy you can imagine, Soros, Rothschild, they're not top shelf. They're not the hidden masters. Okay, they are the last gatekeeper to the hidden masters, shall we say. They take orders too. And the hidden masters really are probably like in Agartha or on the moon or whoever the fuck knows where. And they're controlling everything from this place. This is why they couldn't be stopped. This is why it took an international coalition to secretly go after them, because as strong as they are, they don't rule the world with an iron fist. They rule it with mind control, with propaganda, with matrix psyops, okay? And they've done that incrementally until we reach the last 30 years or so, where it's just so wall to wall that we're now in an age where if you even say something reasonable that's not okay with the establishment, they will find ways to hurt you. If you're big enough, if you're a big enough name, all you have to do is just, and it's a lot like in China, when you look at how the Chinese government treats people that are a little off script, it's the same as what our corporations are doing to us now. Big tech is doing now. Oh, you want to share a meme that says that you believe in Pizzagate. Well, we've fact checked that and you're not allowed to post it. Like, dude, chill out. If it's not true, I'm not saying I'm okay with it, but I'm fine, I guess, if you want to put a little, we believe this isn't true. But if you're going to give me a strike on my account because I said it, what are you saying? What are you really saying? You're actually saying you're scared of this information. Why? Why are you scared of it?
Yeah.
If it's not true, why are you scared of it?
Yeah. See, my thing is, like, even though, okay, I'm of the opinion since 2020, I'm of two mindsets with the whole organization aspect of this whole Great Reset thing, right? How well was it planned, and how well is it going to be when they initiate the plan? I don't have an answer for that. I'm just waiting it out. So well, I'm kind of conflicted in that way.
My inside baseball is that a lot of this has been going, I don't want to give a definite time frame, but a lot of the estimates I see that I agree with say that a lot of this has been gamed out since the 40s, 50s, and 60s when you had Eisenhower, JFK. A lot of these people were blowing the whistle and they got murdered or kicked out or whatever. And so there's been white hats ever since then that said, we can't let this happen, but we're powerless to stop it for whatever reason. And there's been a secret war going on in America, at least, but probably around the world since then. And it's only gotten bigger, worse, and escalated. And in 2015, there was a shift in the laws that was put on the books that basically opened the floodgates. Trump then went down the escalator literally the next day. That's when some people were like, this guy is the one, because they were watching these changes. He becomes president, enacts all these executive orders, and all hell's breaking loose behind the scenes, because people think that what they're seeing is organically happening right now. They think that when they watch the news and they see McCarthy say this and they see Biden say that these things just happened. Now, while they were acted just now, this script is years and years in the making, okay? A lot of I'm not saying that there's nothing that's organic. I'm saying that if you own a business, like my family owns a nursery, right? A tree nursery. And I said to my uncle who runs it, I said, you know, how far in advance do you plan this business? Like, do you not plan 6 months to a year in advance with your orders for next year's growing season and all that? Well, yeah. Okay, you're a little small business. Do you think governments don't plan things for, I don't know, a generation or two in advance in some cases? Of course they do. They have to. You cannot. The greatest, look at the pyramids. How long do you think that, all right, let's not use the pyramids because that's another weird story. Let's take something more like a city. How long does it take to build a city, for fuck's sake? And you think that they plan the city just as they go along? No, they have zoning boards that decide where things are going to go, and then it takes a while to build them up. And so they have plans on the books, and then they modify them as they go. So you have to understand that the so-called white hats, the so-called black hats, they have playbooks. And the Great Reset is one playbook. The Great Awakening is another playbook. But here's the genius of the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening is like a judo throw, okay? It's taking the energy of the Great Reset, everything they were doing, and it's twisting it to expose them, uproot them, destroy them, and wake the people up. As the people wake up, in the background, you have these black op military operations going on, this 5G warfare shit going on. You have the National Guard in this country has been mobilized for the last 4 years or so. They've been cleaning shit out. You can see it's not obvious, but when you look at the military deployments and shit, you go, why is the National Guard so busy lately? They're all over the place. Things are happening behind the scenes. Deep underground military bases are probably getting cleaned out. It's just my conjecture, but I do believe it. Getting cleaned out. You know, to be clear, I can't prove any of this. This is just pattern recognition and data points that are telling me this. They're getting cleaned out. It doesn't mean it's painless or that it's completely over, because when 2020 happened and the election was stolen, a lot of people on my team were like, Trump had better get the military out and do something, because we know they stole it, because we've been conspiracy theorists for 20 years already. We know these fuckers did it. We don't need to have much more proof. We can see enough proof just in the damn F-bomb that they dropped that night. So it's like, okay, Trump, bring out the military. Let's drain the swamp. And then nothing happened. Crickets. And we're like,
what the hell?
I guess he failed. I guess Q was wrong. Why? And it blew our minds. And I went into deep depression for like 2 years. I'm not going to lie. You know, not obvious depression, but deep depression. I mean, I would, for that first like month after 2020, I was literally, how should I put this? I'd wake up, put the phone in my face, and get depressed all for like 2 or 3 hours, put it down, get up, and then see it on the computer, and then talk to my friends, and I have liberal friends who are like, this is so great, stupid Trump, he's fucking down. And I'm like, guys, you don't understand. It's not even about Trump. Like, you don't even know what just happened. You don't get it. It's not that I'm going, yay, Trump. I'm a libertarian. I want Ron Paul. I want people like that if I had a choice.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't understand. Like, you're talking about, like, you know, authoritarian dystopia depopulation, and you're cheering because they got a rainbow flag on it. I'm not even against your rainbow flag. I'm against this other shit, you know? So people got duped, and I was struggling because it didn't make sense to me. It didn't fit the pattern I'd figured out. I had figured out Trump had the military with him, and that when this is over, you know, he'd roll in, but he didn't. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why not? Then I realized if he had, what would have happened? They've been saying he's a dictator for years. He's going to do this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if he did that, all that would do would be to justify all of that rhetoric. So the opposition would have every justification in their minds. And if I was there, I would agree with them. To be fair, if I was in that bubble and I saw Trump rolling in with the military to clean house, I would think, fuck, here it comes. Here's Hitler.
Yep.
I would have gone to civil war mode. And even as a libertarian who likes Trump, I would be raising my eyebrows, even though I'm cheering for him inside because I know what's at stake, because I'm a libertarian because I know what the New World Order is, not because it's just what I think is right. I'm not just ideologue oriented. I'm also pragmatic. I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, so I would have been upset too. Like, oh man, this was a real sloppy way to do it, but I guess it had to be. I would have been okay with it, but I would have been like, I get why you're mad. It didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Because that's the point. The point was not to make just a change, right? People are, if Trump's really the commander in chief still, if Trump's really good, if he's really the good guy, if the military's in control, why this, why that? Because you are awake enough to see why that would be a good idea. But the other 80 people out of 100 in your area don't. And if they saw Trump do that after years and years of the media telling them that this is Hitler reborn, then they wouldn't accept it either. And when it's all over, you would have a civil war on your hands of a proportion, and it would be a grassroots civil war. It wouldn't be states against states. It would be people just bombing cities and shit. It would have been madness. And you're still going to get some of that, by the way, in the next year or two as this unfolds, at least in America, probably in Canada, probably in Europe. You're seeing it in you know, Ireland right now.
I'm starting to have this feeling over here in Canada it's going to happen, because when you think of Canada, you don't think of civil war. You don't think of that. And even as a Canadian, I don't think that Canada is land of the free and home of the brave. I don't believe in that. Not up here. Because we didn't go through our own 1776. We're still under the dominion of the... You're
still owned literally by the crown. The queen can just make your whole shit go. Well, the king now can just snap his fingers and your whole, you know.
Yeah, but as I told you before, I'm in the Montreal area, and we have the French over here that see themselves separate from the rest of Canada. But the thing is, and I have to say this because a lot of people that watch me, Americans, other Canadians that are not in the province, have this idea that they think they're saving their culture. But it's not. The thing is, it's an illusion. The last month has been the most hilarious and the most interesting type of chaos and paradigm shift I'm hoping I'm going to see. Because even over here, even the French, even these guys are bought and sold, despite the fact that, oh, we're trying to protect our culture. We want to separate from Canada. No, you guys have been bought and sold. All of these little things that's been going on here has been nothing but mere distraction. And I'm over here like, well, I'm giving my opinion. And then you're going to have individuals out online or even to your face will make fun of you for the same reason that if you disagree with their opinion, whatever the case is, they're going to say names to you. So it's happening up here too. It's happening. But I think, see, the thing with us up here is we're always 5 to 10 years slower than you guys. That's what I've noticed. But I'm glad, I would say I've been red-pilled. I don't know what else to say. I had that eternal awareness since I was young. And so, okay, here in Canada, we don't have the 1A. We don't have a 2A. So then how are we going to pass this litmus test? So for the silver lining with this whole thing is, for me, this is the monster and the collective shadow that had to be revealed.
That's why I did the Shadowgate project. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. No, but it had to happen. It had to. Unfortunately, I was saying about Trudeau. I call him Cuban Fabio because I just.
Yeah, that's a good one. Blackface Fabio. I get it. Yeah, a lot of insults you can throw at him.
Oh yeah, big time, an arrogant prick, But I mean, like, you could be arrogant,
and he's designed to be that. They do that to demoralize the opposition. They go, look at this pissant that's running things, and you can't do anything. Yeah, that is so demoralizing. Why do you think they chose Biden to be? It's just part of the demoralization psyop. As a magician, I understand psyches very well. So I understand why they choose what they choose. People go, what a weak guy. That's the point. You're supposed to look at them and go, we're being beaten by this. How pathetic.
So what I'm getting from you is if you want to get into the mind of these people, okay, studying NLP is what I'm getting at from you.
Doesn't hurt. NLP is a little outdated, but it is a good start. I would suggest, yes, it's good. I never actually studied officially NLP. I am actually, I guess you would say,
intuitive.
I'm being a psi vampire by trade.
Yes.
I'm automatically inclined to know how to manipulate, to know how to be a chameleon, to act like the person I'm around when I want or don't want. People who've watched my show a lot will be like, yeah, Thorne's acting a little bit like Maiden Liberty, or I can see the inflections. I can see, and it's a natural thing because I like to, unless I hate your ass, I like to, I read people and I get to know them within seconds. And I say this all the time. My wife will validate me. I read people like they're transparent, and it's a little bit bad because it's unfair. And sometimes I'm a little bit of a dick about it, because sometimes I'll be like, I know what you're thinking, and it pisses me off that you're lying to me. And so I'll call you on it, but really I'm breaking that trust where it's like sometimes a white lie is necessary, to keep things smooth. But it bothers me because it's not a white lie to me. It's like you're lying to me. Anyway, so it's not necessarily a set of, shall we say, tactics or skills. True, what they call neurolinguistic programming, true, manipulation requires, as they would say, like toxic empathy. You have to be able to read your target, to know what they want, to know what they're thinking, to know what they're feeling, and then play off of that, to insert yourself into that as the solution or whatever. You're basically a con artist. Okay. And so these people, the good thing, the way that they operate is different because they can't do it on a personal one-to-one level like I can. They've got to do it for a lot of people. So what do? They do what any good magician or con artist does, is they set you up to make it look like it's happening organically, but they actually set you up from the beginning. They create things. It's a Hegelian dialectic. They create an issue so that you are susceptible to what they're going to say next. So they don't actually have to control your mind. They just set you up so that you're easily controlled. They put you in a path where it's unavoidable. And if you are a normie who relies upon the system for your life, and you like being part of the sheep crowd, and you like, you know, the security of that, you're really easy to control, because all they have to do is make your lights twinkle once in a while and say, we got this shortage and that, and you'll bend over backwards to placate them. And so they get you with that kind of psyop. They don't get you with, they read your minds like I would do. It's not even neurolinguistic. It's worse than that. It's algorithmic now. They've got it to the point where they can algorithmically change people's minds. Facebook admitted this 2007 or 8, I think it was, maybe a little bit after that. That they, by modulating your timeline, they can make you happy or sad. If they're saying that, they can do anything to your mind by now. You know, and I know this because when I see particularly contentious things going on in the 2020, early 2020, I notice an uptick in my feed showing me shit to piss me off versus stuff that would like agree with me. Like I know the people that I friend on Facebook are mostly in a similar line of thinking with some moderate leftists there. So I'm expecting some people to be critical of Trump and all that. No, it was Trump's Hitler, you're Hitler if this, and it was like one person saying that they were like pissed off about the election. And I'm sitting there like, I know for a fact that I have like 4,000 people that I follow on Facebook. I know for a fact that 3,800 of them are not all anti-Trump people. So what's going on here? So I know that they put things because they like drama farming. They like all that kind of stuff, outrage farming. So they like that for clicks, but they also use it to make you just fall for outrage. And when you're outraged, here's another secret. This is an NLP, well, not an NLP secret. And I did describe NLP, by the way, when I'm saying I try to be like you. I don't try to be, it's just a natural thing. They will, so if you want to, like very brute force, low level MK Ultra psyop shit, you get somebody traumatized, scared, upset, and in pain and anxiety for as long as you can make them tolerate it. Then once they're in that state, they're open to any suggestion that'll make it go away. And the fucked up thing for all the people that are like, yay, Trump, I want to warn you guys of one thing. And this is something that I'm worried about. And I'm hoping it's not going to be the new boss is the same as the old boss. I'll know pretty soon.
Shoot it.
They're using the same tactics on you right now. Do you really think, especially if you think like I think, and that Q is real and that all this, do you really think that they're not controlling most of this going on right now to scare you into supporting what's going to happen next? Of course they are. Of course they're making it look like it's hopeless. Of course they're making it look like the border is completely open and they just admitted, Trump just admitted that 26,000, the military has a deficit of 26,000 people they can't get recruitment for. And that they should use, what do they call it? It's a path to citizenship where you serve in the military, and that you serve in the military and that gives you citizenship. Well, he just quoted that 26,000 military-aged men and women, or men, I should say, crossed the border. Specific number. Why do you pick that specific number? You know what I mean? So there's some weird shit going on. I can't make truth claims, but I can say speculation claims. I think that some of these guys have been given a deal. You come over, you work in our military, you do ops with us, and you get citizenship when this is over. And I think that that's going to play out in a way that we don't realize, because it's going to look like, all I'm going to say is next year, expect all hell to break loose, if not before. Like, I don't know when, anytime between now and next year, the end of next year. I'm expecting all hell to break loose, and I expect a lot of shit to break. I expect people screaming, crying, hysteria. I expect a lot of shit, like 9/11 level shit probably happening at least once, maybe 3 times.
I think it probably might be worse than that. Listen, because with me, when 9/11 happened, I was probably 9-10 years old. Okay, so you could only imagine like a kid who's seeing on CNN up here in Canada, why are the towers, like, what happened to that? Like, that was surreal for a kid, right? Now that you're an adult and you realize, oh shit, there's a lot of nefariousness going on, you're like, okay, this is a little bit more deeper and darker. But the thing is, what you were describing before, I think there's 2 words, dark triad, right? Yes. So
guess which ones I'm good at?
I would assume everything.
No, actually no. Machiavellian was the highest. I always score. Narcissist is second, and then the last one I almost don't. I'm not actually a psychopath, really, not like that.
So what test is this?
Just the ones online that are bullshit, so it's probably not real. Come on, I'm honest to a fault. I don't care.
Listen, you kind of got me a little curious there, because when you go in the depths of your mind and you start to like, oh shit, like I'm starting to get a little bit nutty. Like, where did that come from, right?
You're not nutty. You're just being... Okay, you know what nutty is? Nutty is when you are... I'll use the word ignorant, but that's not the right word. It is when you are...
I would say ignorant. I don't think...
Yeah, ignorant is... Well, ignorant in metaphysics, ignorance is the only evil. And it's not evil like you're bad. It's ignorance is what evil is. Because the thinking is that when you know the truth,
yes.
you act accordingly.
Yes.
And if you don't know the truth, you act accordingly. Now, if you understand that all is one, we're all the same being, having different experiences, you act accordingly. And when you realize that, generally that means you do unto others as you would want to have done unto you, because you recognize that that is you in another form.
Yeah.
So you try, rabid dogs notwithstanding, prey items and predators notwithstanding, you try to treat reality the way you would want it to treat you.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you don't have weapons, and it just means that you are non-aggression policy towards everything. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what about someone who doesn't know that everything is one divine consciousness experiencing itself as this? Then you get people that go, well, I'm all that matters because I'm not you and you're not me, so I don't have to. And then they become very toxic and hurtful. And that's a big piece of it. It's not the whole thing, but it's a big piece of it. So the metaphysical or mystical understanding is that evil really is reducible down to just ignorance. But ignorance is also what makes reality what it is. Without ignorance of the higher reality, you would see everything at once. Mm-hmm. What would seeing everything at once look like? Absolute emptiness, chaos, nothingness, oblivion. If you could see all of reality as it is in an instant, it looks like nothing. And I don't mean just darkness, nothing. I mean beyond dark. I mean, like, you know, what would it be like to watch a movie all at the same time? You couldn't comprehend it. And that's what the divine is. Mm-hmm. So without ignorance, you don't get a multiverse that you can experience. So you need to have a reduced awareness of the totality in order to experience anything other than the totality. Mm-hmm. Think of the number of infinity. What's an infinite number line look like? You can't imagine it. But what does a segment of it look like? Well, it could look like a universe if you did it right. Mm-hmm. So that's the point, is that we see... and if you do the right substances, you can confirm this to a degree, I think. You can see that you're tuned into a very narrow bandwidth of, we'll say, attention, of awareness. Mm-hmm. And when you strip that away, it becomes less and less relatable. Mm-hmm. So we are tuned as human beings into, we would say, a 4-dimensional space-time construct, right? But you could argue that it's infinitely dimensional, that there is an infinite number of spatial dimensions and at least another, we'll say, 7 quasi-dimensions of time and paradigm. Mm-hmm. And if you have this, so look up 10th dimensional or 11th dimensional multiverse. It's a very interesting concept, which I think has some merit, metaphysically speaking. Mm-hmm. So when you approach it from that perspective, you realize that right now you're like a radio tuned to a specific frequency, but don't get it twisted. On the absolute highest level, there is no frequency or vibration because it is all a static, unchanging, permanent, or shall we say eternal being. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't move, it doesn't change. But you can't say it doesn't because that limits it, doesn't it? Yeah. So that's the wild thing about the absolute, about Brahman, about the divine, is it's so unlimited, you can't even say it's unlimited because that makes it sound like that's all it can be. The absolute is both limited, unlimited. It's the ultimate paradox. It's everything.
It's everything. Nothing. Yeah.
So yeah. Back down to earth though, mm-hmm. when you understand that, you act accordingly. You can't look at a person and just go, you know, I'm going to take everything I can from them because they're stupid. No, you go, that's me in another form. I at least want to not hurt them. I at least want to leave them alone. I at least want to be, you know, polite to them or whatever. And if they're a rabid dog, of course, then you know.
Yeah. No. But to add to what you're saying, because I kind of been having this, this introspection for a while now, and I said, you know what, I don't know if I would be able to, whenever I'm in the chat, because it's always going like crazy. But I wanted to poke your brain with this because I had a little bit this, I guess, gnosis, not quite sure, but this introspection. This is what I like about the occult. All right. It makes you just question everything, and everything that you're explaining right now. It's you're just stretching the imagination of the human mind, right? You don't know where it could go. And when you have these, what I call syncretic experiences, it's like, whoa, do I have a big appreciation? Even if it's very subtle, I have an appreciation for it. But even when you get into the forbidden and the macabre side of things, the things that a lot of people do not want to touch, even that I have an appreciation, but I embrace the absurdities of life because that's just part of it. And it doesn't, and it's like it's demystified for me. I'm not bothered by, things that people find, collectively weird, for example. And I think with this whole thing, as I pointed out in the past, and I'll mention it here, Canada did not pass the litmus test. It had to go through its
Take a drink, everybody.
Yeah. How many have we had so far?
Keep going. I'm just being a dick.
Oh, you. Take a shot, guys. Take a shot. As many as you want. We're very...
I'll turn it... So how about this? Drinking game is anytime Thorne brings up non-duality is equivalent to when Maiden Liberty brings up politics. It's basically...
There's a point. There's a good point, though. Canada had to go through its own darkness, and as the end result of it, I was proven right in the end. I was proven right. Like, you guys want positive change, the old paradigm has to go away. And as much as it sounds absurd and ridiculous, how can you deny it at this point? Because honestly, even on an economic level, that's going to hit you more than just simply the policy. That's going to come second.
Yeah. And again, you have to remember something I said before the stream, which I didn't say on the stream, is that the bad guys, we'll call them, just because we like binaries, the bad guys have created this perception that people that think like we do are a minority. Now, yes, we might be a minority because we're libertarian, but I mean freedom-loving people who realize there's something wrong, who don't like where the world's going, they make us sound like kooks, crazies, and a minority view. And they try to make it desperately look like the majority of people are, blue-haired feminazi, hate white people, down with the patriarchy, touching kids is fine. Yeah. They try to create this perception that that's the norm. And I got news for you guys, by the way, some of that most outrageous shit in the last few years, it wasn't them doing it. And I hate to say that because it hurts me to say it. The white hats amplified a lot of that. They got me going too. Okay. They got me crazy about it too. CM probably knows what I'm getting at. They created this narrative that, pedos are everywhere. Now they are, but they're not in the general populace. Oh, they are. I shouldn't say that. The ones we're talking about are the Epstein fuckers. Okay. Those are the ones we're really got a problem with. It's not, the average person they're not a problem because they're such a tiny minority of a minority. It's not even funny. But all of those things, they want you, whether you're right or left, they want you to think that the majority view are these dumb idiots. Okay. Step out of a city or get off the internet and you'll realize the average person's not like that. Nope. It's not even close. And most people are aware something's wrong, deeply wrong. And most people do understand roughly, vaguely what is wrong about it. They just can't put their finger on the whole thing because they've never opened themselves to Alex Jones and weird people like us. Yeah. So they go, yeah, the whole system's corrupt, but is it really like Alex Jones corrupt? Yes, it is, motherfucker. And you're about to find out. That's what's happening. That's why we're going through this, because we're being shown. But the average person is not okay with this. They've been cowed or cowed into silence because for the last 15 years before Trump, there was this buildup of cancel culture and violence against people that have a different opinion. It's exactly what they did in China and under the Maoist revolution, under modern China. It's the same tactic that they always use, struggle sessions, the whole works. They very publicly take down people. Alex Jones was the first domino that fell, that was canceled off of everything at the same time, and no one made a stink, and so they know they can get away with it. So they keep doing this shit, and it makes the normies go, well, I better not say anything. I don't want to lose my job because of something I posted on Facebook. Motherfucker, you're why they're winning. It's not because they're stronger than you. It's because you think they're... Look, I used to work in a stable for like summers, a couple summers out of my childhood. And one of the things that the farmer stable people told me was, okay, see that horse over there? It's a big old Clydesdale, right? How much do you weigh? 200 pounds? I'm like, 240. Okay, 240. How much do you think that thing weighs? I don't know. Try like 1,000 pounds or so. Okay. Do you know that that thing will do everything you want it to do because it doesn't know that you're smaller than it? It thinks you're bigger and stronger because when it sees you, it thinks there's a horse behind you. It doesn't know that you're just this front and that's it. So it thinks that you're a big horse too. And so what they do is a very similar thing. They make you feel like the horse. They're tiny, they're weak, but they bark louder than you. They're scarier than you. And so you acquiesce. And these people, these normies, because they're living in a gilded cage, because they're dependent upon the system, because they're dependent upon going along to get along, and Canada's full of that, by the way, so is Australia. So you notice, what is one thing that makes America different? America has this attitude of, yeah, we know we suck, fuck you, we're going to kill you anyway. Like, we just don't care. And that is part of what keeps us a little solvent against this. That, and we've got First and Second Amendment. So when you have these things, it actually saves the world. This is the scary thing for me as an American, because I don't like feeling like we're that important, to be honest. But if America didn't exist, the world would already be completely under. And that's not because we're so great. It's because we have a constitution. The constitution we have is like, people around the world would look to America and be like, wow, they're going full authoritarian, and they might do something, or they might freak out or whatever. So they couldn't do it that way. They had to go the other way. This is why you feel like you're 5 or 10 years behind us, because you're actually 5 or 10 years ahead of us in the New World Order plan.
Yeah, I think Canada is going to be that experiment that you guys are going to be seeing unfold.
Well, Australia was way ahead of you. Australia was, I was trying to tell people during COVID, I'm like, if you're not paying attention to Australia and getting scared, you know, they literally have concentration camps now for people with COVID.
Yeah, that I did see. And actually, getting back to your point in terms of like government instilling fear in you, trying to make you feel small. And I'm going to speak from my own personal experience. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Quebec was the only province in North America that issued curfews not only once, but twice, and threatened us with a vaccine tax. And guess what happened? That was looming under us and put in fear within myself. But when I heard about the V tax, I'm just like, I had a moment of, whoa, how are you idiots going to even enforce this? Like, even though I was caught in my fear, I also caught myself and say, no, there's something about this that is not going to fly. It's not going to. Like,
well, that's part of the, and look at when that all happened. You have to remember, by the time COVID happened, Trump had already been there for 4 years. The executive orders were already happening. The military was already making its moves. The bad guys were already starting to get decapitated behind the scenes, and there's evidence of when some of these people were actually taken out. So the point is that all hell already broke loose. 2020 was like here's the thing people have to understand. COVID was going to happen in 2020 or so, whether Trump was there or nobody or not, because it was supposed to happen with Hillary Clinton as president.
Oh boy.
That's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And if it happened under Clinton, we wouldn't be having any of these conversations because the lights would be out. We'd still be in lockdowns. There would be no end to it. People are like, oh, Trump did the vax. He's a bad guy. You don't understand the alternative. The alternative was we go into darkness forever. They had to push something out so that the media couldn't spin it anymore and say that we need a vax before we're free. So this made Big Pharma rich enough that they're like, well, fuck it. We'll accept this as like as a booby prize, and blah, blah. Why do you think Trump said they might kill me over this shit? So you have to understand that a lot of this stuff, even the hard draconian stuff that Trudeau's doing, there's only two reasons that would be. It's either he's still okay and working for Klaus Schwab like we know he is.
Yep.
Or he has a gun to his head and it's like, finish playing this out because we're going to expose you through it. We're going to make Canada pissed at you and hate you and expose the whole show.
Okay, so to add to that, back in 2020, I don't remember if it was reported in the lamestream over here, but there were Chinese spies that have infiltrated in Canada. Mm-hmm. That is a thing, and I'm not surprised by that.
Don't forget, China's got its own deep state and its own counter to that. It's a weird place over there, too. Yep,
and we also have here, and you guys probably wouldn't believe it, but have you seen the Chinese population out in Toronto and in Vancouver? They also have those Chinese police stations. We also have them over here in Montreal as well. Despite us being all tolerant and all inclusive, this is the darker side of things. But for Trudeau, let me just say this, because you guys probably don't know how our system works here. We have been under a minority government for the last over 2 years. You know what that means, a minority? There's a coalition going on. The other guy that is propping up Trudeau is a racist guy who is having the highest position in Canada while all of this is going on. So we're under these idiots for at least until the other guy gets his pension. Now, what you're saying, DH, I think that is a possibility. But people were saying if this guy, Trudeau, if he's going to step down, they're going to let the other deputy PM, who is, what's her face? I don't know if you guys had seen that there was a Nazi that was invited to Parliament.
We made a lot of fun of that. We made fun of that I made fun of it.
Please do. Please do.
But that's my point. Let me just interrupt for 1 second. This is my point, is that look at all the rakes these fuckers are stepping on all of a sudden.
Yes.
They are way slicker than this. You can't tell me that they're just suddenly don't know how to do what they've been doing for 30 years.
No. I'm sure that they're very much aware of what the hell is going on. Cuban Fabio might have a freaking firearm to his head. We're just going to play this out and say, okay, I'm done, and whatever the case is. But
that's
I don't know.
That's my suspicion. Yeah, that's my suspicion.
That's your suspicion. But I'm also thinking, I'm calling it now, that if we do have an election in the next 2 years, which by then I think Canada's going to be it's going to be far worse than it is right now, given everything that's happening. I wouldn't be surprised if there's foreign interference, because the last two elections that we had, the outcome in terms of how many seats were won were the same thing, more or less. Mm-hmm. That's a little too close for comfort, in my own opinion, if this was organic.
Mm-hmm. It's not. Let me guys put a point out here. People were talking about like our election with Hillary, and Tommy said, like, I'm so glad that she miscalculated. You guys have to understand something.
Yeah.
Do you think the powers that be allow elections to steer anything? That's the point. They don't. They might in the distant future once they've cleaned house, but right now they don't. If you think that, listen to me carefully, people on the right, you got to get your head out of your ass in thinking that there's like these lily white good guys running things. You want bastards on your side too. You want assholes that are willing to do what it takes. Black hats that are working. That's why they call them white hats. It's the same people. They do evil shit, but they do it for you. If you think that Trump won that election without some degree of interference in the system of election to allow that to even be possible, because Hillary was rigging it. Why do you think on election night she didn't even make an appearance and all hell was breaking loose? Because they thought our rigging didn't work, because we fucking rigged it too.
Yeah.
So you have to understand, it wasn't just Hillary miscalculated. Trump was going to be president because the military said so behind the scenes. Mm. They've got way more toys. So the military installed Trump. Trump is a figurehead. He's not the genius. I'm not saying he's stupid. I think he's been a CIA operative or whatever since he was 18. I think he's been a spy for a long time. Yes, I do. Same thing with most of the Hollywood geeks that you follow. A lot of them are spies too. You just don't realize it because that's how it works. If you understand how the connection that the government has to all these institutions, you understand that. It's default understanding. So they installed him to be the meat shield for the operation, to be the guy that the media would attack Does the media attack the military? No. Why don't they say anything? Because the military's left out of this completely, because nobody wants to invoke the military, because if they do, it's over. It is over. It's been over for years. It's just we're watching the final moves play out. That doesn't mean it's over like nothing bad can happen. It just means that we've won. Now, how much did we win versus how much damage can they do on the way out the door? You know, that kind of thing. So elections are always rigged. Don't ever think that they're not. There's always rigging, and it's usually successful. So that's one thing. Now, George Coggins brought up Iraq and the Middle East. This is important. He brought up the poppy fields, correct. And the human trafficking, correct. But Iraq in particular, Iraq is way more than oil. It's way more. One of the biggest things they did was secure the national treasures of art and history. Why? They were not just there for oil and shit. They were there for artifacts that they needed to complete certain things that they were going to do. Say it's a Stargate. I don't know. Use your imagination. Okay. If you talk to, there's some veterans that, how do I put this? There's some truth seekers, shall we say, like on YouTube, and book writers, authors and such, researchers, that they tell you, like, we get messages from Iraq veterans who were there in Baghdad during the original couple of years. And we didn't just secure the oil fields. We raided their museums. We raided everything to protect it. Do you think that maybe a few important little, cylinders of, whatchamacallit, of ancient Sumerian, cuneiform didn't go missing? And, what about the Lama Su statues that suddenly had cuts taken out of it? What do you think's really going on? Do you think it's just oil? No, of course not. They needed to go into Babylon because that's where Uruk was. That's where all of these things were. That's where the ancient Sumerian history is. It's still buried, or at least was. And they pilfered as much of it as they could. Yes, just like Indiana Jones, Macamé. Very much like that. Just like in World War II, they're doing the same, because it's not over. There's still more shit that they want that's hidden. Or at least there was. So that's a big piece of it too. It's not just, you have to expand your thinking, as it says in the Q stuff. You have to expand your thinking from this two-dimensional, superficial, organic, Joe Biden's bad because he burped today. He's been probably dead for 7 years now, or 6 years now, okay? He's probably been dead for a while. If you look at the conspiracy theory about is Joe Biden dead or alive, I challenge you to look at those pictures and his different signatures and his different walking patterns and his different eye color and his different earlobes and his different everything, and tell me that that's just age and a little plastic surgery. Bullshit. He's wearing a mask, and they can show you. There's actually a documentary that shows the level of mass that they admit that they have. Not what they really have, but what they admit that they have. They're pretty lifelike and believable. I've seen him rub his neck, and his fucking neck just keeps moving like a piece of rubber. You can see it. You can see this one recent one he did when he was on the plane. I think he was just getting off the plane or whatever. And they try to interview him, and his chin looks like fucking... It looks like, what's his name, like from Family Guy. It's got like a fucking ball sack on his chin
Peter.
all of a sudden. Yeah, and he's got like this huge dimple in his chin that's like moving around. It's like, what the fuck? You expect us to believe that that's even him? What are you, insane?
Now, let me add to that, because I've heard a few people say that there's some vampiric thing going on here in terms of they're taking the blood of kids, and that's going to make them
Correct.
stay. So would you say that is, I forgot what the word was. It starts with an A or
It's
something.
adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome, yeah.
The chemical is adrenochrome. It can be synthesized, but word on the street is it's a lot better when it comes from the real thing. And if you study your history, you will notice that the blood of innocence is always given to the dragon. What does that mean? What is the symbol of that? What is Moloch? Moloch is not a deity, as a practice. Moloch is not a deity, guys. If you do the etymological understanding of that word, Moloch is not a deity. It is a practice.
So what does it mean within that practice?
It's a type of sacrifice.
Okay.
So it's actually Molech.
Molech.
It's pronounced more like Molech. It's not a deity, just like Baphomet is not a deity. Baphomet translates into Sophia, or wisdom, if you understand the etymology.
Okay.
So Baphomet is not, people have deified it. They've turned into an egregore, of course.
Yes.
But originally Baphomet is just, it's an Arabic or something word. I forget the whole etymology. There's a whole video you can find out. You walk it through, it means Sophia or wisdom. It's basically Gnosticism.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
By the way, the good guys are mostly Gnostic. Just so you know, the good guys behind the scenes, Trump, for example, is probably Knights Templar / Gnostic. Just so you know. Probably. That's the speculation that I think might have a grain of truth to it. Not a whole big bucket of truth, but a little drop in the ocean of truth.
But in terms of the whole keeping these guys alive because of this chemical, would you say that's that conspiracy theory is true?
The exact nature of it, I don't know. My gut says that it's true, and I don't think you even have to go, like, from a metaphysical...
I could kind of understand it through the metaphysics, but continue. Well, go on.
I can tell you as a psyvamp myself, there is absolutely energy that you can inhale, right?
Yeah.
You can suck energy out of people. You really can. And as a psi vampire, one of the most delicious energies for me, believe it or not, it's not making you suffer like I'm making you miserable. I don't actually like that taste. I like scaring people. Now, if you know my lineage, you know that I'm slightly related to the royal families, okay? I have what would be draconic, reptilian, whatever that line is, I have a few drops of it.
So how'd you find out about your lineage?
Because I know who my people are. I know who my greats are, okay? I know who they were. They were governors of Jamaica. When governor didn't mean you're elected, it meant you were a colonial governor. I know who my ancestors are. They were not little people. They were the richest people in the world at the time. Okay. Yes. My great uncle was one of the richest people on earth at the time, rubbing elbows with all these guys. But I like to think he was hopefully a white hat version, because from judging what I've seen of him, he liked to make opportunity for people not, but I could be wrong. Okay. He was a 33rd Mason, the whole works. So, and it shows, if you know my family and you know how people operate in my family, you can see it. There's this tendency towards, whether it's intentional or not, just fear, this and that. People feed off each other. It can be very toxic. And it might be a reptilian bloodline thing or whatever that is. Okay. Now, why is that important? Because adrenochrome is produced when a person, usually a child, because they're more susceptible, is terrorized to the point of extreme duress, and their body is just loaded with adrenaline, basically. And their blood is just completely polluted with it. Then you kill them, drain their blood. You extract the adrenochrome, and that supposedly is tastier to those who use it. Now, it is basically one of the most, according to the rumors and legend, it is one of the most intense drugs you can take. It is also supposedly grants extension of life to some degree, or energization. Now, that's what I think. I think it's enervating. I don't think it's necessarily it makes you live longer, because I don't think they need that. I think that they've got life extension, because my understanding and my read of myth and lore and the truth is that we are biologically degenerate on purpose. We're probably supposed to have a lifespan of somewhere on the order of magnitude of 1,000 to 4,000 years. If you read your Bible, if you read your Sumerian myths and legends, you will see that it's in everywhere around the world. The same story, humans lived a long time, and then less and less and less, and then nothing, basically nothing. So what my understanding is that humans were engineered. We were meant to be avatars for higher beings to either inhabit or guide or both. So we were supposed to have enough intelligence that we could be good slaves or good avatar bodies for them. Think like the movie Avatar. They do these movies, by the way, a lot of the times to hint at things that it sounds nuts, but Hollywood has a meaning if you know why they called it Hollywood. Anyway, basically, then they lost control. Humanity rebelled. There were good guy aliens too that were like, good, Enki, think of Prometheus, think of those beings. They're like, yes, come on, humanity, be free. We've created you to be free, be strong. And humanity did. And anyway, I don't know the whole hidden history. I'm still learning that myself. But human beings by default should be living much longer. And it's probably a simple matter to just fix that issue in the genetic code, probably in the telomere, thing. But I think that it may even be possible for them to just fix it and live to 250. Think about this. All of these people that just, you know, these big important people that die and just, are we sure they're dead? You sure they're not, you know, just here's a death video and here's them going to the funeral? No, they might be flying around a UFO somewhere, living another 1,000 years out there, you know, as kings and queens. Who the fuck knows? I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying assume it's possible, because in the next few years we may find out.
Yeah, maybe, but also like their essence is still around through their ideas.
Well, that too. Remember, physicality is just a dimensional, you know,
it's a superficial dimension.
Yeah, it's just a superficial thing.
Yes.
Mind is what is more fundamental, and consciousness is fundamental of all.
Yes.
So consciousness, mind, and physicality is just an appearance of those things. It's not even really physical. It just looks physical. Again, do the right substances. You can tune in and out of different, shall we say, I like to say that shrooms and DMT, it's like taking the radio and just like shaking it so it loses its, you know, its exact tuning, and it just kind of like, you get kind of weird tunings to things. So what ends up happening is that when this body dies, you don't die. You're not this body any more than you're this suit of clothing. In every culture around the world, no matter how. Here's the thing, you have to ask yourself, there's only two reasons why humanity in every single instance throughout history has similar ideas about life, death, God, unity, all of that. They're very similar, if not exactly the same, if, you know, adjusting for language. Either everybody is suffering the same delusion because it's a human characteristic to have this delusion, or it's true on some level, and we're just all realizing it because it's self-evident. My understanding is that the default perspective of every sentient, literally every conscious being, every mindful being, whether it's highly intelligent or not, is some degree of non-dual or unity conscious or whatever your word for it is. It's the default, and it's any sophisticated, intelligent being knows that. Only humans have been indoctrinated out of it, as far as I know. So like what we call aliens or deities, or maybe they're both, they know it. Don't ask me how I know that, but I do. So the elite, these bastards, these assholes, these fuckers that do this, a lot of them know it too. And here's the fucked up and twisted thing. Remember how I said before, when you know it, you tend to treat people accordingly?
Yes.
There's a caveat to that.
Yes.
It's the ancient caveat. If God is so good, why would he let bad things happen to good people? Number one, there is no such thing as people. These are just appearances. But let's do away with that semantical argument. Let's actually get to the root of it. To the absolute, there is no such thing as good or evil. It is all valid because it's all equally present in the divine. There is something in Hinduism called lila, or the play of Brahman, which basically means everything that happens is for the fulfillment or entertainment of the divine. And you'll say, well, what a dickhead, he's doing this to us. No, he's doing this to himself.
Yes.
You have to realize it's not doing it to you. That's ego talking. Hey, God's doing it to me. No, you are the divine. Let's put it this way. I'm going to challenge everybody in this chat who might say, that doesn't sound right. God wouldn't do this. Let me ask you a question. Would you play a video game if there was no chance of losing and getting your ass kicked and having a monster eat your character? Would you? Isn't it more fun to have a risk that you could lose?
Of course, because it would be boring afterwards.
Correct. So why would the divine be any different?
Well, let me just add to what you're saying, because I'm just going to be saying what I've heard from other left-hand path practitioners here on YouTube. It has nothing to do with good and evil. It has to do with order and chaos. So I don't know where that fits in. I would just think it's just part of the absolute anyways. Right.
And that is the case. And
yes.
I'm getting people saying something about the chat's in the way. Oops. So, sorry, say that again. I got distracted. I was reading the chat and I had a problem. Say that last bit again, just so I can make sure
I got it has to do with, it's not, okay, it's relative morality is thrown out the window. It's about order and chaos. Now, where does that fit into the absolute? It's just playing with it on itself, basically. It's
correct.
Experiencing itself.
Think of it this way. Both order and chaos are reflections of the same thing. So, like a coin with two different heads, it's all the same silver, and each head is a reflection of that silver. It's like two mirrors reflecting off the same source. So chaos and order, both are true and neither are true. Together or apart, they're actually a reflection of something that is both and neither. So if the divine is everything and nothing, then that means that it must have whatever polarities in perfect representation. And there's more than we can imagine. Like when I see Jasonium talking about, for example, earlier he was talking about sacred geometry. All true in this paradigm. In this paradigm, all of that applies. Go to another paradigm, it can be completely different.
Sure.
You know, what we think of as logic and rules and math and nature, yes, it's all true here. But that's because it's a pattern that we've learned to recognize. Let me put it to you like this. Take a calculator and multiply 2 times 2 and you get 4, right? Does the calculator know that that's correct?
It's been programmed to do that.
Right, but does it know that that's the right answer?
Does it?
Well,
no.
We'll say from our limited ability to perceive into the mind of the calculator, we would argue that no, it does not know that that's the correct answer. It's a mechanical operation. It's a reaction. It's not literally an intelligence, right?
Yeah.
What is the capacity to know that 2 + 2 = 4 rather than, because if you program the calculator differently, 2 + 2 can be 5.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing that forces it. The calculator doesn't know. Right, George says the calculator doesn't know. It's a calculator. Exactly. It's just an abacus. The abacus doesn't know that it's equal or that it's correct. So how do you know it's accurate? The divine knows. Wisdom knows. It requires true intelligence, which is not a mechanical operation. This is why you can use logic to lie. I can make a perfectly logical statement that's completely false. It's not hard to do. Just because it's logical doesn't mean it's true. So you cannot argue that intelligence, or I shouldn't say intellect, because intellect I separate from intelligence. You cannot argue that intellect is consciousness. And you cannot argue that is a truth teller. You cannot argue that sacred geometry is the truth. The truth is that you recognize that it's accurate or that it's correct. So the truth is what recognizes. The truth, the absolute knows. It is wisdom. So it is wisdom. When we say wisdom, we're not talking about some old guy with a beard that goes, I know. No. Wisdom is a kind of intuition.
Yes.
It is a natural knowing of the truth versus, it is the ability to discern. Let us use the reference of the apple of Eden. When humanity was first created, did we have higher wisdom, or were we just an operating biological machine like something out of Blade Runner that didn't have a soul, if you will?
Sure.
Now look at your Gnosticism. The story goes that the Demiurge and his archons made humans, but they were missing the vital spark, and so they didn't work, and so they had to do something. Well, Sophia entered that. They raped the shit out of Sophia, and that produced living beings with souls. So then you have the Apple of Eden story. You have all these stories, which, yes, they're different. There's some are different, mean different things, but they resonate with a similar theme. The blood of Kingu. Early humans were not wise. They may have had intellect. They may even had consciousness, but well, I shouldn't say they had consciousness. That's a non-duality. That's a taboo to say it that way, but you get the point. They had what we would recognize as being conscious, but they didn't have wisdom, or they didn't have discernment, or they didn't have true intelligence, which is intuitive. This is why human beings we made mankind in our image. This is why human beings are gods. We are gods incarnate, if you will, because only gods have that awareness. We are able to discern fact from fiction, truth from lie, wisdom from foolishness. So you end up with a situation where people like me and you sit here talking for hours trying to figure out what's true, and people will say, well, what you say doesn't necessarily add up. And we go, I know, because it's not just about adding up. Calculator can add up anything you want. It's still be wrong. You have to have pattern recognition. That's one of the signs of actual intelligence, is not just the ability to do 2 + 2 = 4. That's false intelligence. Real intelligence is knowing it's correct or not. And why?
So Socrates, a wise man or just an intellectual?
Oh, I'd say he was a wise man, yeah. Socrates, 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 Plato. I would argue that no, they were absolutely, because you have to understand what they were doing. If you read the stories about them, they were meditating all the time. You have to understand the culture they were in. We have this idea that they're isolated. No, the Greeks, the Egyptians, and the Indians were like this. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not obviously to us, because you don't see them going, we're friends with the Indians. You know, when I say Indians, I mean like, you know, the Hindu, the Indus Valley people.
Yes.
No, again, look at the word chakra. It's a loan word from Greece, kakra. I don't even know which one really got the ideas first. You can argue that a lot of the higher philosophy came from Greece and went to India, and then you could argue the opposite. Did you know Plato had his own version of chakras? Do you know that the Egyptians did? Did you know that these ideas are not new and that the Hindus didn't invent them, even some of them?
No,
although a lot of their history goes back further than ours. But
that I did not know, but I was aware that there's more than just the one variation of chakras that we're aware of.
Correct.
But in terms of Greek, I didn't even know that. But now that you said that, I'm not surprised by such a thing.
Yep, Plato had 3. Okay, in fact, Plato's system was similar to the Chinese system of the different Dantian, and so you had in the abdomen, in the heart, and in the head. And they're pretty much what you'd expect. The one was the drives, the next was like a passion, the other was like an intellect. And they all work like, and I think Plato used the analogy of a charioteer, a chariot, and horses.
Yes, makes sense. Because you can't have one without the other. They're all interrelated. It's kind of like body, mind, and soul. Yep. Like that trinity, you could say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makame says chakras are fake. One thing to say about that is the Hindus would agree with you. A lot of them, not all of them. Chakras are a thought form that we use to interact with the so-called energy body.
Yeah.
You don't need to use them at all. But this idea that chakras are something that aliens use to suck off your loosh, that is some weird new development, and it's actually mostly predicated by people who want to sell you chakra removal surgery to milk you for money and give you a soul star instead.
Yeah.
You don't need their help. If you want to, just collapse them yourself in your own conscious understanding and access them as one object or not at all. And that's the thing, is there thought forms that you can use to connect. You have to understand the way the Hindu energy body slash, you know, their version of the body has 5 sheaths. You have the meat sheath, literally the food sheath is what they call it. You have the energy body, and you have all these different ones. There's 5 of them. Just leave it at that. And the energy body actually acts as like an intermediary between the physical and the one after the energy body. I forget the word. I think it's spiritual or mental body. Anyway, and the causal bodily, and then there's just, you know, bliss body is the last one. So the intermediary is the energy body, and it actually sort of exchanges between the two. And the chakras are that. They are a way to exchange, if you will, between your mental self and your physical self. It's an intermediary, and it's more subtle than the physical. So that's what chakras are for. This idea that they're purely psychological, that's a new development. This idea that they're purely energy is also silly. The idea that they're just about healing your body they're holistic. They involve everything.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, you don't need them to do all of this. They're just one option, and they're a good option because they're a really good organized system, but you don't need it.
So I have 2 questions for you, because this is a good little segue to poke your brain to ask you about being a psy-vamp.
Okay.
I was always interested in that. I've never participated in the subculture. I just think it's really cool, the aesthetics, you know. But what would be your advice for a noob if they wanted to have a better understanding and practicing that in their practice?
Let's understand we have to separate culture from fact.
Yes.
We have to understand that we're actually talking about something nuanced that goes back into antiquity. Because as I said, I do believe, I've said this on Facebook, I do believe, at least conjecturally, that the big bads that are running everything and their human counterparts, they are vampiric. And I don't just mean in the metaphysical sense. I mean in the literal sense. They drink the blood of innocents. Okay, they do. They always have, and they probably will continue to do so long as we don't get rid of them. And that doesn't mean that, look at all the myths about vampires for a moment, and then equate them to what is being claimed about the New World Order elites in the really deep conspiracy circles, with some evidence, by the way.
Yeah.
You have this idea that these fuckers can have life extension, they drink blood, they thrive on pain and all. You're literally talking, and so what if vampires are real and they're hiding in plain sight as the Rothschilds and shit like that? I'm not saying that is what's happened, just make that case.
Maybe.
Let's also then suggest that the blood drinking thing is just an option. There's also energetic vampirism. How does that work? All right. So energy exchange is a part of nature, period.
Yep.
Or at least it looks that way. At the highest level, nothing's being exchanged. But on this level of reality, we see an exchange happening. This exchange can either be predatory or parasitic or symbiotic. Nature prefers harmonious symbiosis. Even predators and even parasites are beholden to that rule of harmony, whatever, balance, symbiosis. Everything is interconnected and requires each other. Just like you might hate mosquitoes, but if you got rid of them, the world would die in a couple of days. You need mosquitoes for the world to live. I hate the fuckers, and they kill more humans than anything, but we need them. So parasitation, as much as we hate it, it's a natural function of the universe and is required. Okay. But I don't recommend it, because you as a human being and most spiritual beings do not need to parasitize, because there are alternatives for us. There are some beings, there are no alternatives. I believe this, that some beings do not have an option. Now, the cultural phenomenon of vampirism is predicated on that dark side, the sexy, evil but good. You know what I mean? Like, we all love that. Like, I do, you love. Like, nobody likes Lestat because he's a good guy. We like him because he's a bad guy, but we can relate to his badness in a way that you kind of understand why he's that. When he's not really that bad, because he likes to prey on bad people, so he's like a good bad guy, right? In fact, some would argue he is a good guy. An anti-hero. Well, we like anti-heroes, especially on the dark side of the tracks. We like anti-heroes. Yeah. So if you wanted to get into this, you actually have to put that away, and you have to understand the energetic functions that are going on. Most psy-vampires, actually I'd say all vampires, even the blood drinking kind that we would call out in our culture, like people who like to drink blood because they think they're a vampire or whatever. They're doing so for the energy exchange. They don't need the blood. It's just the easiest way for them to do it, because blood is something that makes people freak out. It gives them this rush like they're doing something forbidden. And all of these things cause fear in other people. And they really feed on those things like fear, anger, drama. Some do feed on positives, by the way. And that's actually what I was going to get at, is eventually when a psy vampire heals, shall we say, they become a symbiote that actually doesn't like those negative energies to the same degree. They actually prefer the positive, the cathartic energies. That's actually what they really want, and they don't know that. So an unawakened psy vampire tends to be very predatory and vampiric in the sense that they hurt you to get their fix. They have to make you hurt, scared, angry, drama, whatever, attention. But an awakened vampire has the opportunity to transmute that into a positive thing, so that they can feed positively. And positive feeding is what I've learned to do. That doesn't mean I don't occasionally partake in the negative kind. Circumstances happen, reflexes occur. You piss me off the right way, you flip that switch. A sadistic, evil, terrifying fucker comes out. I don't have to hit you. I can just talk to you and make you piss yourself. Ask people who've experienced it, they know. So it's one of those things where, and when that's happening, the whole time I'm just like, ooh, this is delicious. And when it's over, I feel sick, like I hurt somebody. I feel horrible, because I'm not a monster. I'm a nice guy. I don't want to do that to anybody unless they really have it coming. Like I've said, if you, my ideal afterlife as a vacation, if not maybe my full-time job, would be to be the demon in charge of pedo hell. I would just be there all day long grinding people, going, does that hurt? Was it worth it, you fucker? I would just have so much fun with it. I wouldn't even flinch. Oh, look, your dick fell off. Hey, look at that. Woo. wouldn't even, there's no grotesquerie that I wouldn't delight. Just to hear the screams, I would play them on a tape just to hear it, just to hear it. I would just, yes.
It's like white noise for you.
It would be white noise for me, okay?
Yes.
But if you did that to an innocent, something else gets triggered.
Yeah.
I guess that's the good guy blood in me, the good guy lineage that is just like, no, we don't do that to innocents. So whatever, it's like, it's not a taboo. It infuriates me. It makes me want to eat you. Like I'm like a predator of predator. I'm like I don't know what you call that. Like what predator eats predators? Like that's kind of how I am.
Alpha male. The alpha.
All right.
Let's get to that alpha.
I'm so alpha. I'm a fucking sigma, baby. That's how, you ever notice like those YouTube videos? Everybody's a sigma male now. It's like, oh, come on. I'm so sigma. I hate that shit.
That's a weird trend. Weird trend for that.
Mm-hmm. It's all narcissistic.
So for practicing it, what would be a good in to try?
I got a book on the subject if you want. It's the Infernal Vampire's Handbook. It's a small book. It touches on all of these things. It includes a ritual to Lilith. You can change it into Asmodee if you prefer a masculine, source. Mm-hmm. Really, you can use other beings, but you might have to invent how to do it. And there's an option to either be a vampire or to just be taught how to do the techniques. And one would argue that to be it has more potential, but bigger drawbacks because now you have to. So the way vampirism happens in the negative sense, like you're a predator or a parasite, is because something's feeding off of you. If you really study this phenomenon, you find out that the vast majority of people with vampiric tendencies are children of abuse, of narcissistic parents, vampiric parents, whatever your definition. They might not be bad people because it's almost like having a condition, like having bipolar or something. They can't help it.
Yes.
And if you are like the child of an unawakened psy-vampire that just abuses you mentally all the time, you develop a psychic hole in your energy body, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And it goes from the higher energy bodies, the higher bodies down to the energy body and even into the physical. You can feel it. You can feel the tremors in your body. You can feel it tingling, like where the hole is. You can kind of feel it. You can even feel, if you use a chakra system like I do, you can feel which chakra it's infecting. And most psy-vampires attack certain energy centers more than others. Mm-hmm. For example, they don't usually attack the crown chakra because it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. The throat chakra, though, big target. The heart chakra, huge target. The solar plexus chakra, huge target. Sacral, also big. That's the lusty vampire attack. Mm-hmm. Root chakra is fear-based. So all of these different chakras have a different angle of attack that a psy-vampire can hit you with. Mm-hmm. If you can figure out which one you're being hit with, you can figure out how to stop the vampire, believe it or not. If you can realize, okay, this person is preying on my fears, they're attacking your root chakra, and then you can use that as your, how to
basis.
shape your, how to respond. Now, the inverse is, if you're a psy-vampire, you will find that you prefer certain chakras to attack. I've been telling you, I love inflicting fear. It's one of my favorites. It's just delicious.
I love it.
So I will go after things that scare you.
Yes.
And I'll make you scared. The other one is the heart chakra. I like to take someone that's pissing me off and break them down through analysis and shit like that, and just tear them apart inside. And they hate themselves when it's over. And it's horrible. I don't like doing it. I feel like a monster. And then I'll justify, be like, well, they had it coming, This is why I'm so slow to anger. People say, like, how come you don't? Because when I do get mad, when I get into that mode, I'm not okay. It's not a part of me that I'm how do I put this? It's not a shadow that I'm denying or that I'm hiding. It's something that I keep on a leash, and I let it out selectively only on things that I don't mind letting it out on.
For sure.
And so that's another thing you got to be aware of. If you start delving into vampirism, it can be addictive. Once you start realizing how you can get that boost, you may want it too much. Now, here's the thing I would argue. I don't think it's that easy for someone who doesn't already have the potential because they're being fed on or whatever to really enjoy it. because when you see what it entails to do it the negative way, it's not fun. Now, you can do all kinds of things. You can do visualize attacks. You can imagine energy being transferred. That works too. But you still need to do something to get their energy to be available. Think of it like, I can't just like suck the soda out of the bottle. I've got to tip it and drink it. In a similar sense, I've got to get you destabilized energetically to feed off of you. To do that, so what I've learned to do, you can ask CJ, because I had a nice conversation with him about this today. When I recognize someone that I can help, I don't insert myself. But if they come with a problem, if I recognize there's an angle that I can come in on and be helpful to them, I'll go in and I will help them as best I can. And then that catharsis, I feed off that catharsis now. And then if I'm having a problem, I might insert my own problem in it too, to help sympathize. And in that process, you get this dynamo going, which you can suck so much more of that energy, and it's more nurturing energy. It's a positive energy, and it starts to fill that hole that the negative energy vampires have been sucking out of you, to a point where you can actually heal that hole and no longer feel this need to cause the drama or pain to feed. So if you want, you can check out the book I have for it. I don't think I have any, I don't even have the PDF anymore, else I'd send it to you, because that, and I lost my old computer. But if you, it's on Amazon. It's called the Infernal Vampire Handbook, and it's only like $10 or something. So it's not like.
So I'm aware that there are some. I'm aware of qigong, for example, but
I'm a fan. I don't practice it much, but I am a fan.
So my understanding is, yeah, it has to do with life force energy. There's a difference between life force and then the energy itself. That I'm aware of. Those are two different things. Creating energy, crystallizing it, feeding off of it, manipulating it. It does all of that. You could do whatever you want, is what I'm understanding.
Well, don't forget, you're talking about, in some cases, semantics, because a lot of what and I'm not saying you're doing semantics. I tend to be a little bit too technical, but I'm just trying to like. All I'm saying is like, whatever you're saying, say it, know the model, but recognize it's not absolute. Just like I said before, chakras are a thought form. Oh yeah. Chi is a thought form. Yes. Energy, everything is a thought form. If you realize what's really going on, it's all just namarupa, name and form. It's all just labels and shapes that we isolate and pick out and say that's what's real and not that. So when we call it chakras, you visualize them as these little spinny lotus things. I use like, balls of energy, like, Dragon Balls or something. Other people will use chi and they'll visualize energy shooting around. Yes. But there are things you can see. You can see with your eyes, with your sight. You can see it, like the whole, oh, I can see your aura. Well, most of the people who say like, I can see auras and it's like a rainbow, I've never seen that. To me, it looks like an ectoplasmic, milky layering around your body. And it does have something to do with visible light, because I've noticed that some things are harder to do in pitch black. But ironically, I can see my hands when my eyes are closed. I don't mean I see my hands. I mean, I see movement. Like I literally, in pitch black, if I do this, it's like I can see something moving. It's like I see a shadow or a milky white. I see a blur moving. Yeah, so I've had that experience at least twice in my life, seeing auras, and I was not under any drugs. It was just, it happened like that. I was at work, and there was like a connection that I had with this person, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, and it became more like a glow. It seemed more like a glow in my experience. But in terms of it being seen at night, I don't know if that's just my eye is just getting adjusted to the darkness itself, but I feel like at times you almost can't see it at night. I'm not sure. If I can make a slight recommendation. Yes, please. And I don't get any kickbacks from these fuckers. I just bought these. I can confirm that if I haven't used them extensively, but what I have seen works, okay? Get the legit kind, not the ones on Amazon that are from China. So, dicyanin goggles, if you look this up, this guy invented this dye to help with night vision. Dye. It's a kind of dye. And it's used to, you're supposed to actually put it between two sheets of glass originally. I don't know if that's how they made these. These are made, I believe they reverse engineered the originals. And they're basically this kind of violet blue dye, which looks black to the normal
Yes.
lighting.
Yes.
And they're almost like welding goggles, but they don't have ultraviolet or protection, so you will go blind if you use these for welding.
Okay.
But when you look through them, what they do is they train your eyes to be receptive to the wavelengths that the aura shows up in invisible light. That's not the only way, because there's still a psychic connection that has to happen.
Yes. Yep.
Now, people will say, well, those don't work because blah, 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 blah. Number one, you cannot use them with a camera because a camera does not pick up that wavelength. The camera has nothing to do with it. Like people say like, oh, prove that they work by putting them in front of a camera. No, because it doesn't work that way. If you look at what the claims were, it has to do with the cones and rod cells in your eye.
Yeah.
Cameras don't have those. They don't work the same way.
Well, that spirit photography has also been debunked too.
Right. A lot of that's been debunked.
Yes.
But here's the thing. After you stop wearing them, they're a training device. You don't need them after a few sessions. You start to be able to recognize them. I've always been able to see a little milky white aura around my own hands and sometimes other people and shit, especially. I can actually get like little lightning bolts of white milky energy to go between them. No one else would probably see it, but am I nuts? I don't know. Am I imagining it? I don't know, but I see it consistently and I can feel it if I do it, and I can trace a feeling on my, I don't have to look, I can feel what I'm drawing on. I feel like a magnet. It feels like a magnet moving around my hand.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine your blood is just filled with iron filings. When you do like a chi ball, you can feel that pressure. You feel it. You can see it with your eyes. Now you do the dicyanin goggles for a while. What I used to see is now to the point where I see flashes. It's no longer just a little bit. It like made it pop even more than it already did. So I figure I'll have to keep using them for a little while to just really, every once in a while, maybe refresh it because I don't do it very much because I'm not into it. But ever since I started using it, like I can see it and feel it way better than I ever did before. Now, let's play with that for a minute.
Okay.
The problem we have is that we approach things from a reductionist perspective because that's what we have been indoctrinated into.
True.
We've been indoctrinated into this idea that reality is atoms up. What if I told you that reality is more top down than that? By that I mean, when I hold up an object, we'll say this ring. If I asked you, what is this ring made of? You're going to say metal. And I'll say, well, what kind of metal? Well, it's steel or something. Okay, what's steel? Well, it's atoms. Is it though? Are you sure that atoms make it steel or does steel make it atoms? Which is actually the more fundamental? If you recognize that consciousness is the most fundamental thing there is, then that means that what we perceive is holographic. It means that it's emergent. If it's emergent, let's ask people, has anyone ever actually seen an atom? No, you've only seen an instrument that says an atom's there. Even if you say we got a photo of it because we have this new instrument, it's not really the atom you're seeing. You're seeing the instrument's interpretation of its readings. You're not seeing the atom. No one's seen it. We've measured it. We know they're there. You know measurements are there. You don't know atoms are there.
Yeah.
So if we follow that extrapolation, you could say, well, we know that it's real because when we plug in these things that these say, we get this result. True. Why can't we combine Einstein and Newton then? Why do they have such a problem? Yes, the whole system appears to work on the macro scale and the micro scale, but we can't figure out why they work together. They don't, they shouldn't, they can't, but they do. How, why, what? Because my understanding that I'm approaching, and this could be wrong, this could be conjectural as well, is that instead of thinking of reality as reductionist, imagine it as emergent from what we perceive. This is also in keeping with the 2022 discovery that reality is not locally real. When you do the research on that one, it'll blow the tits off your brain because you're like, wait a minute, you're telling me the moon doesn't exist until something observes it? Correct, it doesn't. Nothing does. Nothing that you think exists independently of itself. In other words, no atom or molecule exists as a thing in itself. They are interdependent with consciousness. They cannot be, in other words, A photon is not a photon until it's observed. It literally is nothing until it's observed. It's just potential. That potential is not even a photon.
So is this like that experiment, like the slit experiment that you're referring to?
Yes.
It's very similar to that
they're
one.
all interconnected because they're all basically...
Yes.
That slit experiment led to all of this because it asked the weird question of what the fuck's going on here.
So when was that thing conducted?
What's that?
When was that experiment conducted?
Which one? The double slit?
Yeah.
I don't remember. That was probably... I could look it up. My gut says 40s or 50s, but let me see.
Okay.
Double slit year. Let's just do that. May of 1801? Am I that far off? Did I jump into another universe? I thought it was like the 5th. So this happened in the 1800s? No. Hold on. First performed in 1801. Okay.
Okay.
So when was it like really like, what the fuck? When did that happen? Maybe that is when it happened. I don't know. Guys, help me out here. I always thought this was like the 1900s, like, 1950. Yeah, 1961, Klaus Johnson. Yeah, I'm going to say that the real one we're thinking of was like the 60s or something. Okay. That's probably when it really was. I'd have to really deep dive it again. I was always under the impression that it was more recent because you're talking about cathode tubes and all kinds of shit. They didn't have that in the 1800s. What are you talking about? They must use like candles or something in the original
Yeah, maybe. A little bit medieval.
Yeah, they're probably, so that's probably why it seems like it's been so ancient. But anyway.
Yeah.
The double slit is fascinating because it kind of shows that. But the argument that the materialist makes is that we change reality by observing it. The more enlightened perspective is that we observe reality in a way that solidifies it in the sense that, like I said to you beforehand, think of reality more like a choose your own adventure book in which everything is written and you're discovering it moment by moment, instead of causing it moment by moment. So this is why, for example, when they say when the wave function collapses, they don't like the multiverse idea because they imagine that it means that every femtosecond, another universe is created out of all the possible changes that could be happening, which is insane. It would require energy on a magnitude we don't have, because they're still thinking in terms of thermodynamics and limited energy and all of these things. They're not thinking in terms of what if reality is an infinite matrix of everything, and it's us that are shifting perspective through the dimension of time. Nothing's changing. You're just moving. It's like you're scanning through a timeline and it's animating because of that. If that's the case, then that explains everything, because so look up block time multiverse theory, for example.
Okay.
In that situation, the double slit and Schrodinger's cat and all of these things make sense. It's not that we're creating reality moment by moment, and it's not that we're creating a multiverse of branching timelines moment by moment. That collapsing wave function is just the probabilistic tendency for consciousness to follow a certain pattern through the potential matrix. If you understand that, now you understand how magic works, because now you realize you're not changing reality, you're shifting which direction in that multiversal pathway system you're taking. I talk about this a lot because it is not talked about by many occultists, but when you follow the rabbit hole far enough down at the end of the rainbow, when you hit non-duality, that's the only rational way that you can describe it. That's not to say it doesn't appear the other way. It does. And it doesn't mean that that's the only way to interface with it. You can interface with it like you're pushing energy around all you want, but you are not causing things, you're choosing things. You're not pushing universe around, you're going where that outcome exists. And you know why we know this is true? You know what? One of the suspicions we have objectively, they have these studies where they have people focusing on an intention with a random number generator around. And they measure that when people intend for it to come out with more order versus more chaos, it does. They don't know why. Are you causing this hard machine to change its operation because you want it to? Or is everybody going in a dimensional timeline where that's happening? Either one, that's the great fun about ultimate mystical understanding, is both are true and neither are true at the same time. They're both two different ways that the same thing can appear to be. There's one thing that appears in both ways. Causal and acausal, both are true. And neither are true.
So it goes back to what I was saying before, just of seeing how far the human imagination will stretch. That's why it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, because if your imagination is kind of like your, like when you said how far it'll stretch, like that's the boundary of your potential awareness. But that's not the limit of potential. It's just the boundary of your personal awareness. If you can imagine it, you can theoretically incarnate in that or have it be your reality. It is possible. But the more unlikely, the more unreasonable, and I don't just mean to your intellect, I mean to your total psyche. If it doesn't resonate with your psyche, it will not work. This is why learning to detach or destroy the ego is required for magic to fully function at its full peak capacity. Now, what do I mean by that? If you do a ritual and you're fully egoic the whole time, you struggle to have success. If, on the other hand, you enter a deep trance like samadhi or something, or you have a more, you know, your ego is already dealt with because you've hit like enlightenment levels and shit, magic works better because you're not so attached to this one incarnated idea of yourself. In other words, I know that I am attached to D.H. Thorne and the guy who runs D.H. Thorne enough that I don't want to change everything. I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to lose my life. I like this world. I like what I'm living. I'm loving the show. I don't want to lose all that and suddenly be, you know, Ralph on some other planet. I want this life. I want to see where this goes. So that's my attachment. I am psychically attached to this character. So I don't want to meddle with it too much. I just want to tweak it to be the most fulfilling possible. And if you look, that's what magic enables in every case. If you try to go against that, you always get monkey's paw. You always get blowback. You always get problems. When someone violates what their attachments are, it either doesn't work or it monkey paws. To avoid that, you've got to have absolutely no attachment at all to this character you're playing at all. You've got to see it as, imagine you've got a whole handful of different D&D characters. None of them are really you. You're all of them. You got to have that kind of mentality. And I would say that for people like us, that's insanity. No one can comfortably sit on that for very long. It'll drive you nuts if you think that way too long. Temporarily, sure, but.
See, that's another thing. Like when you dive into insanity, it's like there's something kind of fun about that too. When you reach in those depths of your mind, that's what I've experienced several times in my life. That's
why you do have to go, by society standards, a little crazy to do this successfully, because you have to be able to detach enough without letting go completely. Now, you can detach completely temporarily. That's what I mean by entering the states of gnosis or samadhi or zen or whatever your word for it is. But to go there permanently, that would be like nirvana. That would be something else. And most of us, as much as we know that's supposed to be awesome, we love this. Like, this is the thing. Like someone said, beware the Buddhist that says destroy your ego. I agree. If your goal is to be egoless, that means you're saying ego is real and you're never going to be rid of it. Ego is an act. It is not a reality. You can stop it and start it anytime.
Yep.
If you've ever had ego death, that's why I wear this ring. I've had it enough times. I shouldn't even say I've had it, but linguistics require it. When you've experienced ego death, I hate the way language works. When I don't know, whatever. When there's ego death enough times, you begin to recognize you're not this person. You're something watching this person. In itself, it's an appearance of that thing. And you become more capable of just going with the flow without forcing it or being upset by everything. You may stub your toe and get pissed off, but you let go of that pain very quickly. And that's why they say, like, after enough ego deaths, you can eventually let someone be wrong on the internet. Thank you, Siege, for reminding me of that meme, by the way, because that's a great meme. So that's actually the secret to magic. And if you look at all secret society traditions, mystery schools, here's the thing. We in the mundane world think ego death and these things are the end of the rainbow. They are literally the first step. This is why if I were to start an order or a magical tradition that was like formal, you wouldn't be called even an adept. I would barely call you an initiate if you haven't achieved some level of ego death through some method, whether it's drugs or what. If you haven't had ego death, you're not even an initiate because you don't know shit. You think you do until you just drop everything, then you can understand.
So another good segment for this. I'm going to poke your brain, man. I want to poke
That's
your
fine.
brain. Okay.
Challenge me.
Yeah. So do you think you're going to get more success if you do rituals or not? The progression of your magical practice.
Everybody's different. Everybody's different.
Okay.
Rituals are a style. Think of all of this as art, because if you think about it, magic is really it's really psychological art.
Yeah.
There is a science to it. Like I hate calling magic a science because I don't think it is. I think it's an art. But anyone who does art knows that there's a science as well to art. Like you have to color theory or music theory. So there is there is a routinized technology that you can apply.
Yes.
But it's a form of art and it's psychiatric. So this is why you don't need tools. You don't need rituals. This is why a really decent adept, as what's his name, Damien Eccles would tell you, and when I heard him say that, I'm like, okay, he knows the right people. They can literally just take a ring on their finger and turn it, and shit happens. Because it's not about the ring. The ring doesn't mean shit. It's a symbol. The symbol is connecting you to something conscious. And when you understand that, whether it's you think you're changing reality or you're shifting into a timeline, it literally doesn't matter, because both are true in neither. I prefer the above look because I think it's more rational to me. Maybe some people really need to think they're pushing reality around. Okay. But that's why. So when you say, do you need rituals? No. Do they help? Yes. And you could argue that anything can be a ritual. I've joked and said that I can do a spell by pissing counterclockwise into a toilet that'll knock your socks off. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. It has everything to do by reaching, think of it like this. If you want to have a drink of water, what do you have to do? You have to go through the motions of going to the sink. I mean, normally, taking the thing, filling with water and drinking it, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever just been absent-minded and just realized you were drinking water? Like you sort of know, and then you remember, yeah, I walked and did that, but what the hell was, like, have you ever never been absent-minded and just found yourself doing something? And
yes.
Okay, so how do you know you didn't just jump to that moment and now you remember all the steps in between?
It just came naturally. It was just second nature.
It just came second. But that's my point, is we think we went through the motions. You might not have in every case. You might remember them because the current state contains those memories.
Yes.
What is a memory other than a special kind of thought that says this happened before? That's all a memory is. It's an access, if you will. At most, you're accessing something else in the multiverse. So magic can work by a similar principle. You don't have to be connected to the thing to make it manifest. That's why I like the word manifest than cause. You can make anything manifest if you're able to shift into that perspective of the infinite where that exists. So for example, you could skip the intervening steps of getting the drink, but why don't you? Because if you do, it's sort of like having a dream that's so lucid, you realize you're dreaming and you just wake up because you're like, well, this is stupid. And you just wake up. You're like, what's the point of anything if I don't have to walk to the sink and get it? So you don't usually do that. Except when you do. And sometimes you do. That's the irony, is you do this. It's just you make excuses why, oh, I just lost track of time. Oh, I was distracted. Oh, and it doesn't violate anything science says, except because honestly, disprove what I'm saying. You can't. And you can say, well, that's sophistry. Okay, fine. You can say that. But then you could argue the same thing about the alternative, because if you can't prove that either, so you end up with this weird thing where they're both true and neither are true. This is why both and neither is such a big, important saying in mysticism, both and neither. As above, so below is kind of saying a similar but different thing. Mm-hmm. All right. So what is a ritual? A ritual is a way to do something similar to walking to the sink and getting the drink. It's going through some kind of motions that allow you to transition from one timeline to another. If you continue along doing nothing different, then you're guaranteed to go where you're going. If, on the other hand, you do anything different, I could argue that in the infinite multiverse of potential, there's a timeline where all I have to do is go like this with my hands, and I just walked into another timeline. That's all I had to do. Somewhere in the multiverse, there is a pathway like that. So you could argue that just by twisting my ring, I am engaging with that pathway by a matter of choice, because I'm not actually twisting the ring. I'm choosing to see the ring twist.
Yeah.
When you realize the non-dual argument and realization, non-dual perspective, you're not twisting the ring. You're witnessing the ring being twisted. If that is true, then it's a choice to witness it being twisted, because there's nothing to twist. Like in a dream, if I was dreaming this right now, is there really a ring on my finger? No, there's just the idea of a ring on my finger that's manifesting as a ring and a finger, and it's made of dream stuff. And when I twist it, nothing's being twisted, just the idea of it appears to be twisting. In that understanding, you can't cause anything because there's nothing to cause. And when you apply that to magic, when you realize that dreaming and waking are no different, you're dreaming right now. Even a materialist would argue that, because a good materialist knows that the brain is generating an illusion of reality based on sensory data, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're dreaming reality just like when you're asleep. It's just you feel like this is real and you feel like a dream is real. So what's the difference? Then you can go to Australia and ask an Aboriginal, and they'll say, yeah, listen to that guy. He knows what he's talking about, because that's exactly what they think. They understand that dream time and this are the same thing, just mirror images of each other. They understand that time is an illusion, that all time exists at once, and you're actually moving like you're walking through time, like you're consciously taking a path through. Look up the Aboriginal dream time and their concept of time. It's almost exactly like what I'm describing. Mm-hmm. So their idea of magic is the same. Then you have Terence McKenna pointing out, what if it's not that reality is bottom up, like A leads to B, leads to C, and then eventually goes to Z? What if Z is already there and A, B, C, D is all leading up to it? In other words, what if Z is causing A, not A causing Z? Yeah. Well, both and neither. Let's play the both and neither game. Probably both and neither. But even science is discovering that it looks like light goes back in time and tells itself which hole to go through when you do the right experiment. It's as if the outcome determines the source. If that is the case, holy shit, a lot of shit's got to get figured out.
Oh, big time.
and I argue that both and neither are true. That's why it's so confusing to our modern scientists, because they are materialists by nature. But here's the funny thing: if you really study the really high level physicists that are out and about now, all of them are starting to lean more and more and more into what a classical philosopher would call idealism, not materialism. If you listen to the people talking about, loop time, quantum, dick fag, shoot juice, whatever their words for it is, all these different, terms, when you go through all of this, they're talking about a kind of informational idealism. And that informational idealism is the foundation that they think now. And they're moving closer and closer to what a classical non-dual perspective is. It goes like this: materialism, idealism, non-dualism, in that order. That's usually the progress from the delusion of materialism to everything. Once you realize everything is mind, then it's only a short step to everything's consciousness.
So it kind of sounds like a bottom-up sort of trajectory.
Well, there is no bottom, there is no up, there is no down. But,
there you go.
If we're going to say what's the bottom would be consciousness. It's not really the bottom, it's all there is. Yeah. But you would say the bottom is consciousness, mind is the next emergent, the next would be materialism. Now, there might be other things that emerge first or before or after, but from our tiny little perspective, consciousness, mind, material. And if you look at the classics, that's what they say. They tell you there is the source, the monad, the one, all of that. And then there is mind, meaning like mental, like Plato's forms, like ideal forms, then the material realm. And they all tell you the material realm is a kind of illusion, or less real than those other layers. The realest layer is the source. The next real is the mind, and the least real is material. And then you have usually another one after that, which is the void or chaos or nothing or whatever. I mean, again, look at those old sort of maps. I would say it's a map of consciousness. Look at those old maps of reality where you have these different hierarchical layers of reality. If you really know what they're symbolizing, there's always like a sun there. And then there's a field of radiance, and then there's angels and clouds.
Mind maps, as we said last time. I remember that. I remember you were looking for the word, and I pointed it out to you, the whole mind map.
Maps.
Yeah.
Mind map.
But I don't know, another thing. I might be repeating myself, but this one, you tell me. In order to transcend, you have to ascend and descend, or is there just transcendence? Is that all there is?
All right. In the highest understanding, enlightenment, transcendence, those are all illusions too. That's one of the things that really pisses people off when they get it, is because they spend their whole life seeking for this thing that is also an illusion. So if all is Maya, then so is enlightenment. The only thing that is real is consciousness, existence, and bliss. That's it.
Okay.
So transcendence literally just means that you no longer are beholden to the illusion. So it's sort of like having your cake and eat it too, or having a lucid dream. I like the lucid dream analogy because it's more relatable. When you have a regular dream, you don't know you're dreaming. What's the difference between a regular dream and a lucid dream? You know you're dreaming. That's the only actual difference. It's not even that you can control the dream, because guess what? You always control the dream. That never stops. When you're unconsciously dreaming, you are controlling it then too. You just don't know you're dreaming. So you don't know you're controlling it. When you're having a lucid dream, you know you're dreaming, and so it becomes easier to control it, but you don't always. How many times have you had a nightmare, known you were dreaming, but couldn't change the nightmare? It kept happening.
Yep.
I think, right? That's the most common kind of lucid dream. Everybody thinks a lucid dream is, I'm God now. No, that's actually the least common kind. The most common kind is you have a nightmare, realize you're dreaming, can't wake up. That's the most common lucid dream. So control is not lucidity. Lucidity is just the awareness that you're dreaming. Well, that's enlightenment. Enlightenment is the lucidity, the knowledge. You realize this is not real. This is just an appearance of the real. So that's transcendence, is recognizing this is not real. And there's, of course, different transcendent states. The ultimate transcendental state transcends transcendence itself, and you end up existence, consciousness, bliss, or Ein Sof, or Salt, Sulfur, Mercury, God, existence, what the fuck ever, because at that point words go out the window, you just are. And that's the ultimate transcendence. You can't even call it transcendence anymore, because you're not even transcending, you're actually removing all the delusions, and you're just existing. And that's nuts. If you've ever achieved it, it's actually not that weird to achieve. It's just, if you've ever achieved it, it's indescribable. And when you try to describe it, you use metaphors like you feel like you're a drop entering an ocean, that you never left the ocean, but now you know you're it, and you don't feel anything, but you feel everything, and it's blissful, but bliss doesn't mean pleasure. It means total, there's no words for it. And the very first time I experienced it, the first time I wiped away all illusions, it felt, I don't want to say, because it's just the wrong metaphors. It felt, again, like I felt like I was just, imagine like when there's a drop of water goes into water and it creates that little upward thing and then it comes back down. I felt like that part. I felt that part happen. I felt like the droplet was just re-merging with the ocean and was lost in the ocean. And the ocean was so enormous that there was no size. It was like everywhere and nowhere was the same place. There was no sense of time or being, time or physicality, or like, it's like being perfectly numb, like not fuzzy numb, like where it's like a little, just like total, like there's nothing to feel except perfect contentment, timelessness, and being. And you're not, for all you know, you're in that state for 1 billion years and then come back into this moment. And it's timeless when you're there. There's no sense of time. It could be a day, it could be a month, it could be 2 billion years, but then you wake up when it's over, I shouldn't even say wake up, you come back to this and it's like either no time passed or a very little amount or an hour or whatever. That's the thing that's crazy, is like you can't equate it. That's how you know time is an illusion. When you get there, you go, okay, time is a relative construct of your mind.
Yeah.
Space is too, everything is. So what's even real? That was real, and that alone was real. So, you know, the thing is, there's different styles of magic. Magic to some people means changing reality, and other people it means realizing what I just described. Because, you know, look at your ceremonial Golden Dawn stuff and Kabbalah and all this. The end of that is always what I just described. That's where you end up. Like, if you study your Kabbalistic magic, they don't say to get money, use the wand this way. It's always like climbing the tree of life to get to Kether and wake up.
Right,
you know?
but isn't the Qliphoth also part of the Kabbalah too?
No, yes and no. It depends on which tradition you're going by. If you're going by actual tradition, the Qliphoth is considered, it's not forbidden, it's just pointless. It's like, why would you walk through shit? Like, why would you do that? I'm not saying that because I think it's useful for shadow work. But the traditional understanding, it's not that it's like taboo. It's more like if you use it, it's to avoid the pitfalls of it. But I'm not an expert on it. I'd have to get someone, because I'm not big into Kabbalistic stuff. And George is right. It's like the shadow. It's the shadow side of the tree. It's the hidden side of the tree. It's, think of it this way. The Qliphoth, as far as we modern people think of it, is the edgy goth fanfic of the Kabbalah. That's all it is. And people make this big deal out of it, and people don't need it, and people do need it. And honestly, I don't fuck with the Kabbalah much. I liked reading the book I read on it. It was very enlightening. I realized that I didn't need to use it, but I saw the use of it. I still prefer Advaita Vedanta because it's so direct. It's literally just a philosophical approach mixed with meditation. It's all very doable. Anyone can do it. You don't have to spend years practicing rituals. You can literally just sit there and listen to the lectures and meditate on those concepts and then practice some transit. Like, there's 3 pathways in Vedic understanding. There is devotionals. That means like you're worshiping and doing all that stuff. There's philosophical, which means you're listening to arguments and you have an epiphany, if you will. And then there's the transcendental approach, which involves some sort of mystical meditative practice. You could probably even mix chemonosis in there, which I don't know why there's such a taboo on it. I think it's silly if you're doing it in correct moderation. I don't see any problem with using chemical assistance, but whatever. People have been doing it for billions of years, so what's the problem? Like, I prefer, in order of importance, I'd put philosophy is first, but only because that's where you start. You start with the philosophy, not because it's better, just because that's where you start. Then you incorporate meditation into that. Then you can do devotion if you want. Devotion is fun. Devotion gives you something to do with it. It lets you have your cake and eat it too. It lets you be like, oh, there's a great divine and I'm joining with it, or I'm rebelling against it too. That's okay too. You can rebel against it if you want. But you want all 3. And if you look at every culture around the world, it's the same pattern. You have the philosophical, you have the transcendental, and then you have the practice.
Yes.
The practice being ritual and all that stuff. So they're all valid and they all go there. You have Tantra, you have yoga, you have just transcendental meditation, and they're all valid, and none of them are higher than the other. And in fact, if you only do one of them, if you can only do one of them, probably the philosophy would be the one that you can't avoid. You kind of have to do it a little bit. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just kind of fucking around. But philosophy alone just gives you the mental understanding and acceptance, which is only a very modest level of attainment. The mystics would argue that's like level 1. That's 101. That's initiatory. Then you've got to go through the mystical experience, which is meditative, transcendental, chemonastic, die and be reborn, all that shit. That's where the real money is. That's where So for example, if you attain non-duality through philosophy, you believe it. If you attain non-duality through the mystical path and have transcendental awareness of it, you now know it to the point where it cannot be disputed to you. It is not a matter of argument. It is the equivalent of knowing you exist. You can't be argued out of that because you're there to argue it, like you're there to perceive the question. So that by itself is self-evident. I exist. You can't dispute that. So that's what transcendental does.
So let me add something else to in terms of the practice. So one of them would be meditation. Can you also incorporate martial arts in that too? Big time. I would think so.
Well, I mean, look at Tai Chi, look at even yoga to a degree, not the same, but Kung Fu. Absolutely, because to do them really well in the artistic sense, you have to enter a no-mind state, and a Mushin state in the Japanese sense. Now, Mushin is literally, it's not reacting, it is...
it's just doing.
It's just doing, and it's doing, it's like being part of the Tao. Like you recognize that the Tao is the eternal will of the everything. Like the Tao is the ultimate will, and that is what you are too. So the Tao is not just the way, it is causality, it is the will of being itself manifest. So when you let go of personal egoic, shall we say, Mushin is no mind. Thank you, George Coggins.
Yeah.
When you let go, when you surrender ego completely and are just in the moment present, guess what? It's a lot harder to fake you out. It's a lot harder to fuck with you. But guess what? You're also right on the doorstep of enlightenment too, because you are, I could never have achieved what I've done. I shouldn't even say it like that, but our language requires it.
Just go for it.
Yeah. Without the ability to literally shut my thinking process off completely in every way. I can sit there if you were to do a brain scan, you'd be like, there's nothing going, well, you probably look like it's revving a mile a minute, but there's no linguistic or visual anything going on. I am literally just channeling intention. It's like, there is no conversation in my head. I just know shit. And I don't know it in the A plus B equals C way. I am aware of it. And is some of my best work, like if you ever watch me rant, I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm just channeling from source. It's just coming out. There's no thought process to it. I'm not going A plus B equals C as I'm talking. It's just pouring directly out of that emptiness. There is no thought process. It's like my mouth is my thought process, I guess.
Yeah. So to add to what you're saying, I think a good example, and this was like one of my favorite videos that you did on the channel, which was, what's a black magician?
Which one?
That one, old one was from 10 months ago, and it was about 40 minutes, and you did such a beautiful job.
What did I even say? I probably just made it up.
So that you're proving the point.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I'm not a man of ideology. I don't bother with it. Just fundamentals. Once you have, it's like I'm like Mr. Miyagi. Just teach people wax on, wax off, and then show them how to use it.
Yeah, go from there. Exactly.
Right. And that's kind of how I do everything. It's always by the seat of my pants. Maybe it's because I have ADHD and I can't hang on to anything for too long. But yeah, I mean, like, I bet you if you asked me what is that today, I'd say something completely different. Don't forget, as a YouTube content creator, especially going through a transitional growth period of the last couple of years, my views have changed a lot. That's one of the reasons why I've wanted to just totally rebrand and change everything, because I'm no longer that guy that came out in 2018 as this big black magician. I'm a mystic. I recognize now that on some level I was role-playing, not role-playing like LARPing, but I was role-playing in the sense that I was learning some new skills and some new approaches, and I made a show out of doing that. And it was in line with what I was doing. Like, it wasn't fake, but it was definitely like, I mean, like, take EA, for example. I'm friends with EA, and if he gets mad at me for blowing him up, it doesn't matter. Yeah. EA, know him personally, it's not the same as the person that you see on the show.
I kind of figured.
Right. And I'm not saying that there's nothing to it. There is. Yeah. He definitely believes what he does. It's nothing like that. It's just a question of no one sits around going, all the time. It's not like that. You know what I mean? No. You ham it up a little bit. And by the way, that's part of magic too. That's how you channel energy, is by leaning into those feelings and really letting them go. So it's not that that's wrong. It's just don't make the mistake of thinking a good magician knows how to do glamour. They know how to appear like anything they want to be, obviously within reason. So I wanted to be like, hey, let me come out as this, you know, scarier than scary, dark, edgy, you know, Nietzsche motherfucker. And I didn't do that on purpose. It's just, that's what I was feeling at the time. And so that was me. Well, I was walking through that darkness, having the time of my life, and 2020 happened.
Woo.
And then I'm like, okay, I cannot align with these New World Order fuckers with this imagery the way I was doing anymore. I've got to come out and admit, yes, I'm a left-hand path practitioner, but what does that even mean, really? Look up the Agori in India. That's kind of closer to what I'm saying. It's about taboo. It's about normalize. It's about radical acceptance of the dark side of yourself. That's the left hand. It's leaning into that, not to the exclusion of goodness. Like I did that whole live stream about, is Thorne love and light now? If you haven't watched that one, watch that one, because that one, you know how many other occultists message me in the download to say that was like their favorite stream I've ever done. I've had people that you see their content, they're like, demons are everything. And in private, they're like, dude, you got it. That's exactly why I'm doing this, to be a more genuine, sincere, compassionate being. That's literally why. Yes, that's the point, is when you hit that non-dual realization, that's always and again, don't confuse compassion for doormat. Don't confuse compassion for goody two-shoes. It just means you are more sincerely aware of what you're doing. You know when you're hurting people and why and when it's wrong and right. It's a totally different formula. It's not a moralistic formula. It's a sincere, I feel it formula.
Yeah, like kindness is not always equating to weakness.
Oh, no. In fact, it usually takes a lot more strength to be kind than it does to be cruel.
Oh, totally agree.
With exceptions, you know, but it's yeah. So, you know, but you don't want to be kind just because you think it's superior. That's not enlightened either. That's actually toxic, false light, to be like, always be kind. You have true enlightenment and true synthesis is knowing when to do both. And that's one thing I like about LeVay, even though I have a lot of negative to say about LeVay. I think he was a CIA operative, by the way. He basically just kind of reformatted Ragnar Redbeard, if you want to know the truth. But anyway, when he talks about, you know, turning the other cheek and only turning it for those who deserve it, and otherwise turn the other cheek, you know, turn their cheek, and he's not wrong. He's actually talking about a more enlightened state, because he's talking about, instead of following moral codes, which can be wrong sometimes, it's being discerning of when to treat people. Because if you look at the lore of, say, Zen Buddhism, the Zen monk isn't beholden to morality. They practice a sincere form of compassion, and compassion is not codified. It is intuitive. And they will do what society deems evil if the greater compassion is served. There's a story that I like to tell people. There's a story about this one Zen monk who was accused of fathering a child with this girl. Really, she was having sex with this poor kid in town and didn't want to admit it. And what ended up happening was she told her family she was impregnated by the Zen monk so that they wouldn't punish anybody, because it's a Zen monk, right? So they got mad at the Zen monk, and they go to him and they're like, you got my daughter pregnant. The child is your problem now because she's too young and all this. And she's unmarried, and you can't get married because you're a Zen monk. So you've got to take. So he just says, is that so? To every accusation. He doesn't argue it. He knows it's false. He doesn't argue. Says, is that so? And they end up dumping the kid on him, and he starts raising the kid, and everybody's like, you know, every time they accuse him or question him, he just, is that so? He's asking, really? Is that what you think? Okay. He doesn't protest because there's a kid here who needs help. Nobody wants to help it. The greater compassion is to help the kid, not to judge the family, not to attack them. They're going to learn a better lesson this way too, by the way. He understood in his mind, the little girl who was accusing him of this, she's not even that little, but the girl who was accusing him, her guilt is eating her up inside. And then one day she comes forward and she says, I lied about the whole thing. It was actually the poor boy across the town that got me pregnant, and I was ashamed to admit it. And the Zen monk is innocent. So they go to confront the Zen monk again, and they say, that child isn't yours. You were raising it. Is that so? He didn't blink. Where is the morality in that? There's zero morality associated with it. There's zero moral code. There is simply, there's a child, an innocent, did no wrong. No one wants it. I will take care of it. The girl did wrong. According to most people in this society would say, you should accuse that girl of doing what she did and get justice. But by doing nothing, practicing Wu Wei, as they would call it.
Yeah.
He let nature take its course, and everybody learned a deeper lesson, and higher compassion was fulfilled. And there's versions of these stories where the Zen monk acts like a bastard and does this and that. And so you understand, like the Zen tradition, good and evil is not this binary, and it's not a moral play. It is about compassion versus ignorance and wisdom versus foolishness. That's the lessons. And it's a very fascinating way to look. I prefer that so much more. I really do.
Yeah, totally. That's how I feel when it comes to treatment of other people. It's about human decency. That's why, as I told you before, I don't bother with these e-dramas or just people in general. I don't bother. It's like, listen, I see the train wreck. You guys are eventually going to deal with it. I'm going to be here doing my own thing. And I'm minding my business on top of it.
Exactly.
That's how I feel about it.
I'm going to jump in because I just realized we've hit the 3-hour mark. You wanted to go. And I promised to make some phone calls in a little while. And I missed it. But let me go through the super chats. I don't think there was many, actually. Let me go through here. What do we got? We've been so like just on each other, like screw the people. Okay. Back in the beginning, we had Tommy Carson with $2. Vive la Resistance. I believe they were talking to you about Quebec.
Oh, yeah.
You had your friend. I'm not going to say it. Macamanea. That's how I'm going to say it. 99 with a... looks like an avocado saying cool for $2. And we have Patchy say, I would recommend if you ever go down the path of Western magic, I'd initiate through both trees. Yes, that's
fair enough.
I totally don't disagree. I think that's a perfectly valid approach. You know, don't let me judge your path, man. If it's working for you and you're getting enlightenment out of it, do it. I don't know what marijuana's doing, but they keep referencing people and like talking about them. I don't know. This Macanemia guy says like a black magic magician. I don't know. Anyway, people are trolling each other. That's fine. Just be nice. I only care if you get really dicky. I think they're just being playful. That's cool.
Yeah.
I subscribed. I like philosophy stuff and believe truly there is a cabal in Canada. Yes, there is. There is. You're right. There's one everywhere. And it's not to scare you. You've got to come to the revelation, guys, that all of this is real. It may not be real in the way everyone says it's real. Like you have to learn to discern which, like flat earth versus something else. Like flat earth, I don't believe in at all. I think flat earth is a psyop to make people stupid, but I believe some pretty outrageous shit, from Agartha to Hollow Moon to all kinds of shit. When I say Hollow Moon, I don't mean it's like literally like just an empty shell. I mean like, do the research on Hollow Moon. It's got some crazy
or it's made of cheese.
No, but it's like even scientists have explained that it's easier to explain the absence of the moon than the existence of the moon. Yeah. And this is not a joke. It's just that we're not allowed to talk about it without being made fun of. But flat earth, on the other hand, is, I believe, a psyop. And when I have done the research on it, especially when I look at the people who profess it, being an energy reader, I see a lot of psychopaths, and I see a lot of people who are intentionally deceiving, and I see a lot of people who have been deceived, and they're zealots and they're weird. And run from them. And you'll also find that a lot of them are fundy Christians, because flat earth really plays into the whole creationist narrative.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of hard to separate both.
Yep. And those poor souls don't even know that their book was corrupted. At the very least, use the Ethiopian Bible for fuck's sake, and then get somebody to do a literal translation of the ancient words, because people say, you can't do that. Yes, you can. You have to, because it changes the whole story in a way that, by the way, starts sounding exactly like the Sumerian myths, by the way. Yeah. So it like the word for Elohim. Oh, so it's the only plural word that means a singular thing. Yeah. Oh, sure. Sure. I bet that's one time they meant it different. Oh, well, they meant it that way because God is a Trinity. Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why. Sure. Meanwhile, history totally disagrees because we all know that those people were once polytheistic. Don't ever fucking forget it. So, Elohim meant the rulers, the same thing as the Anunnaki meant. It's the same stuff. Anyway, don't let your Bible people fool you. They don't know what they're talking about. One of the things though that is difficult is like the Book of Revelations, because the powers that be who wrote the Bible knew this time would come. They had it gamed out that far back, not the literal moment to moment, but they knew the roadmap to total authority was Mark of the Beast, was all this shit. They knew ahead of time. They just didn't know how to get there. They plotted it. Just you can see it, because if you understand how they worked and what they knew and what they don't tell us that they knew, when you realize the Vatican basically has most of what's left of the Library of Alexandria, and only the parts that burned were the corrupting parts that would have implicated them. Sort of like the Pentagon, the part of the Pentagon that got hit by the plane wasn't really that important. It just had all the data that proved that people stole $1 trillion. That's yeah, of course that part got hit.
I'm of the opinion when it comes to the revelation and what people like. I see this online too, and a few people that I know that have gone back to their Christian roots. I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It could be too, and don't forget you have those prophecy from the Hermetica. You know, that's pretty much true, but it's also, of course, it's true because it's a very rational concept. There will come a time when people will forget the gods and the mystical nature of the. And it's true. I mean, there will be a time when we forget science, and when of course. So it's like, but I will say the Book of Revelation, like everything, fundamentalists interpret these things in such a literal format that they miss the forest for the trees, and they'll be right a lot about things, and then they interpret it like, next week Trump's going to reveal that he's Lucifer, and it's like, oh fuck.
Oh my god.
Like that really does happen. Go on Twitter and hang out in the QAnon Q groups, and you get these wackos.
Oh, I thought you were done. I thought you were done, Twitter.
Oh, no, I am on my formal account. On my troll side account, I use it all the time.
Ah, okay.
I will not, I may come back at some point, because I'm starting to maybe foolishly trust Musk again, but
yeah.
I actually have a feeling that, how do I put this?
You're still unsure of him. You have your reservations.
I have reservations of the man, but I think he is being, let's put it this way. How do you become a billionaire? Well, you don't become a billionaire just by being smart and having money. You become a billionaire by sucking the dick of the New World Order. That's pretty much one of the only ways. I wouldn't say the only way. You can be born into it, stuff like Trump and all that. But it's very difficult to come from nothing and suddenly be a billionaire like he did. So on some level, he must have been a willing participant in some of this. Look at Bill Gates, right? He went straight to the top when he started getting crazy with his monopolies and genocide and shit. I think they got him by the balls and said, look, well, you can keep being one of the richest people on earth, but you got to start doing this stuff. Okay, I'll do it. There's that meme, of course, where he's got the pie on his face that says, this was the moment when Bill Gates decided to kill all the people on the planet. So I think a similar thing applies to Elon, but I also think that, sort of like Zuckerberg, I don't think Zuckerberg got into this like, I'm going to be a New World Order stooge. I think that he was just weird and made money and had a thing they wanted, and he surrendered to it, and he's a dick, and so he's happy with it. Same thing with Jack, who ran Twitter.
He kind of looks the part.
He does.
He does look the part, like a cyborg and everything, and AI and meta. Yeah, it's a perfect.
Maybe he is.
Maybe.
The fuck I know would say that it's possible that he is some kind of Mando-man creature thing that's not, he's like a mandroid or something. It's possible. I don't think so, but it's possible. I've never seen a human being move like him. Let's just put it that way. Nobody moves that way. He has no natural movements at all. They're all just like
robotic as fuck.
Just like, let's put it this way. The only reason I don't think he's an actual hologram or robot is because I think they would make a robot or a hologram that was more realistic than that. So,
oh, it's getting there.
That's what I'm saying. I think they could do better than that. That's why I don't think that's the case. I think he's just quirky and crazy. But yeah, Uncanny Valley, CJ says. But Musk, this is what I think. I think that he stumbled into it and had the gun to his head And I think that he had handlers, just like all these people have handlers. And then the stuff that I think is going on behind the scenes is happening, and he got liberated from that. He knows which side of his bread the butter is on, because notice whose ass he's kissing. Notice which side he's siding with. Notice which side in the Q drops talks about how space will be coming back in a big way. Part of enormous security measures are needed. This is going to be a big thing, probably because it has to do with first contact and everything else. We're probably going to end up with colonizing space in our lifetime starting. We're probably going to see all this shit start. And Elon wants to be on that, because that is, I think, his dream, is to be the first or latest emperor of Mars, because I think Mars used to be inhabited, by the way. I think that Musk wants to be on the right side of history. That's why he seems very happy to do what he's doing right now. That's why he went up. You know, he doesn't seem to be like, I guess I got to play ball. No, he's like, yeah, go fuck yourself, fucking Disney. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Hell yeah. Because he's free now. I think he had handlers, and I think now he's got handlers he prefers. That doesn't mean that it's over. I mean, he, for whatever reason, he got that bitch from the WEF to be the CEO of Twitter. And I guess that was a way to placate them for a while. I don't know what that was about. So, like, I don't know everything. There's still a lot of mysteries that I don't understand, but I do see the data points and the bigger picture. And could I be wrong? Of course. But Thorne's opinion is, and it's a very strong opinion, we're watching a show, we're nearing the climax, and then the denouement's going to be incredible. And then when that's over, the next phase begins, and that's going to be not just D-class about the New World Order and shit. That's part of the denouement of this phase. The next phase after this is going to be the Ascension timeline. Literally, Q brought this up. One of the last posts brings up Ascension. What are they talking about? They're talking about an esoteric concept that has to do with fucking ETs and shit. This is literally the end of human ignorance. The book Childhood Ends is going to come true. You're going to find out that a lot of fiction is based on reality, and hopefully in our lifetimes, probably by the 2050s at the absolute latest, I hope, enough of this will be out in the open that all these people that are being called crazy by the establishment now, like Graham Hancock, people like us, we're going to be vindicated, at least to a degree.
This sounds very Luciferian.
Very Promethean, doesn't it?
Very, yes. Now, if you were to say that to other people, they would think it's all satanic.
Right.
It's the worst thing.
That's the other thing, and I'll say this, maybe this will be the closing discussion. Is that the New World Order uses Satanism as a doorway. They figure, and that's just what, so imagine the New World Order like a big mansion, right? Mm-hmm. And imagine it's got a front door, a side door, a back door, and all this kind of shit. The front door of the New World Order mansion, the Cabal mansion, is the entertainment industry. That's the way most people end up stumbling into it. Oh yeah. Because they get into that circuit. And when you know, this is one reason why I love, we'll say, like black culture or whatever, where they have that whole crossroads thing with the entertainment. Like, look at Coolio talking about it. They're so much more open about it. Like, white performers they hide that shit. They're like, oh no, we're Luciferian, all right. You know, the black people, beautiful that they are willing. I just love, and they bring this up because they're not scared to bring it up. And I love that. I don't know why. I don't know what the difference is, but I think it's beautiful and I love them for it. I love people that do this because there's so few that do. For whatever reason, you have Cooley, you have Prince, you have all these people, Michael Jackson, talking about this shit and exposing it. And then, of course, bad shit happens to them pretty soon after. Yep. But they have the balls to admit it. And the front door of the entertainment industry, part of the mansion, is satanic looking. Literal satanic looking. Like this kind of stuff. Yes. And they do that because it's sort of a litmus test. If you live in Western culture, you're brought up with a Christocentric worldview, yes, whether you know it or not. Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to say fuck you to all that and join the dark side, then you're probably willing to do a lot of shit that they would like you to do. So you show up in Hollywood and you start getting gigs and you get started inviting to parties and they start getting into stuff. They start with the drugs. Maybe they ask if you want to do some, you know, rainbow stuff, and, you know, it's not that weird anymore. So a lot of people say, so it's not even that much of a litmus test. Oh, he likes being gay. Okay, well, that's not much of a test anymore. But back in the 50s, it was. Yeah. In the 50s, if you're like, yeah, fuck me in the ass, you're probably going to do everything else too. Nowadays, it's like, you know, having a drink of water for a lot of people. So it's not really more power to you, by the way.
Yeah.
But, so they use the satanic thing like, oh, you're so deviant, right? You're so edgy. You're so counterculture. That means there's a higher probability, statistically speaking, that you'll do some other shit. And I think there's truth to that. Mm-hmm. Every satanic person I know, no matter how love and light they might be on their heart, they're more like chaotic good. They're not lawful good, right?
Okay.
Like that's kind of like the good guy side of Satanism. Is like, I would argue that Anton LaVey is chaotic good at least in the perception he tried to create of himself. He put on this whole act, I'm this evil fucker, but you read his words, it has a lot of rational, you know, ethical treatment of people in it. So whatever. But if you get down to the people who are like, I just love that Eyes Wide Shut movie. I just love, like, you know, like the idea of this and that. That's how they get them in there. So that's the front door. Once you get through the front door, it's not satanic at all. Satanism is symbolic. It is a facade, and it gets the fundamentalists going, and they get convinced that that's the reality.
Yeah.
And so they're barking up the wrong tree the whole time. How do you defend yourself from an enemy? Don't be where they're hitting you. So how do you do that? Create a straw man. Satanism's the straw man. They've created a straw man for the right to attack called Satanism. And they allow the Christians to basically foolishly lump everything into that, so that anybody with an ounce of education knows that Baal is not Satan. Satan isn't even Satan. The description of Satan in the Bible, if you do the proper translations, it's a title that is used by multiple beings in multiple instances. It is not a being at all. It is not even, it's not even archetype, for fuck's sake. No. Now I'm going to get some theistic Satanists going, no, there really was a real Satan and they erased him. Okay, I know I've heard weird shit. Maybe you're right, but no, I don't think so. So no, the Satan that we're talking about isn't a literal being. It's a LARP for a lot of people, and they just don't want to admit it. I'm just saying it. I'll be the first one to say it. It's kind of a LARP.
Yeah.
It's kind of a LARP. And the elites, they don't worship Satan at all. The front porch guys do, sure, but the real ones don't. The ones inside the mansion, they don't have anything. They don't go, hail Satan, unless just to fuck with you, because they know you're stupid.
But then again, how can you prove it? Like, I've had people tell me, and it's like, but how do you know what's going on behind closed doors? It's so weird.
Because it leaks out. The stuff leaks out. That you can find videos of their rape and torture dungeons, and they call it satanic ritual abuse. Sure, because it scares the subject.
Yeah, sure, in that way.
But go to Epstein Island, it's all Phoenician, Babylonian, Anunnaki type shit. They are still in contact with the bad guy Anunnaki, which is probably Enlil and the more authoritarian Anunnaki, the draconian, whatever. I don't even know. Like, that's stuff that's still a mystery to me. I'm still learning. Mm-hmm. But then you have the line of Enki and the beings that are more friendly to humanity. If you go into a good thing to do is to compare sometimes Greek, Egyptian, and Sumerian, and sort of use that as kind of like triangulate probably the truth. And if you go in the Greek mythology, Enki sort of becomes Hermes and Prometheus, because Hermes is Mercury and Enki was Mercury in the ancient tradition. A lot of people say, oh no, he was Poseidon. No, that's Ea, that's the Akkadian. He was more like Poseidon. The original Enki from ancient Sumeria, 6,000, 4,000, 5,000 BC. That's Enki is Mercury. Not Venus, it's Mercury, it's not Saturn, it's not Neptune, it's Mercury. And that's Thoth, that's Hermes. Now, how does Prometheus enter it? Because everything Prometheus is said to have done is what Enki did. Like beat for beat, line for line, almost, except the part where he's getting punished with his liver getting ripped out. What he did for humanity is almost the same. Yes, it's different language, it's different metaphors, but the exact same thing Enki did. Enki makes us. Well, Prometheus had a big hand in making us. Enki enlightened us. So did Prometheus. All of these things. Oh shit, I think we got enough to do a split. Thank you, Skeleton Power. Great show as always. Cheers. That is a ginormous thank you very much, Skeleton Power. I appreciate that. Yeah, holy shit, Skeleton. So Enki is the good space daddy. Okay, he's the space daddy that wants what's best for humanity. Now let's also realize that we're talking at minimum 12,000 years ago. Assuming these entities are even still those entities and it's not just like a clan or something, or a family name or something like that. Let's assume that they are still alive and it's still the same guys. Isn't it reasonable to think that over 12,000 years that they might have evolved in their own understanding of things and they might have changed their own perspective of humanity, and maybe they've got a more enlightened view of how to do things now than they did 12,000 years ago? Or so we can't just go by mythology and say that's still current. We have to say that gives us a starting point. But what are we dealing with now? Is it still the same politics with the Council of Rulers, or is it some other thing now? Are they gone? You know, I don't know.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
I don't know. But I do know that if you look at the mythology, the things Enki did and were responsible for and were accredited to, if you follow the lineage, especially of the Mercurial lineage, it's the same thing. Mercury's always Mercury. It's always a scribe, a messenger, had a huge hand in the creation of humanity, is a psychopomp. It always has like these things that Enki had. So whatever Enki was, that archetype was retained through all of these different traditions, either because they just had a racial memory of it and kept it going, which is one theory. The other is people still had contact with the fucker and he still shows up from time to time, either in the mind, physically, maybe both, who the fuck knows.
Yeah. Or
the representative of that. Maybe it's a corporation. Maybe Enki is literally a space corporation that, like, all bets are off. We have no idea. Okay. Yeah. We just know the symbolism.
Now, we're going to have to wrap this up, but here's another thing. Are we going to do like a part 2?
Anytime you want.
All right.
Except next week. Except next week, because my kid's coming back from the Navy for 2 weeks. So
no problem, man. No problem.
He's actually coming back that Thursday, so I won't be doing I might do it on a different day, though. So I would love to, though. You're a great guest. You're stimulating. You're funny. You know what you're talking about. You may ask good questions, and you know how to shut me down when I'm talking too much. Like, you know, to be like, I got an idea here. So that's what I look for.
Your throat chakra's on overdrive.
It is. It's very overactive. Yeah, yes. I know. I'm not this bad in person. Well, I can be. Ask CJ. If it depends on what you do. If we're just having a normal, I'm quiet as a church mouse. If you go, Dan, what's reality? Like picture a dragon breathing in before spewing fire at you for like 2 hours straight. That's me.
Yeah. That's a lot of energy you gotta be like taking in.
It's an obsession that I love. I love doing it.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So
I love it.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much for joining us. Make sure now I put the links to your channel, Maiden, in the thing. I'm always a very bad host lately with giving people their where people can reach you. Is that the only place that people can reach you is through your YouTube, or do you have Facebook? Do you have any other things that you want to share?
No, it's just the YouTubes. Just the YouTubes.
Right. You're not looking for social media friends. You're just doing your thing, enjoying the fact that people watch you and giving you an outlet, right? You're not doing rituals. You're not doing any services. You're not professional in any way. You're just having fun. Dude,
I'm just having fun and also trying to find my tribe as well.
Well, welcome aboard. You've been here for a while hanging out. So, you can definitely hitch your wagon to our hitching post every now and then.
Yeah, chilling and killing with y'all.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be a stranger. And you're on my Discord, so you know all about it.
Yeah, for sure.
At least I think you're still in there, but
I'm still in there. I'm still in there.
A lot of people lurk there, I'm finding out, because it's like no one will talk, and then we'll have a movie night, and 10 people that I haven't heard from in like 2 years just show up. So I guess people lurk.
I haven't seen Eddie, and Raquel.
What, Eddie Romanov?
Oh yeah.
What, in Discord?
In your show.
Oh no, he hasn't been on the show in a bit. He's been in the chat a few times in the last couple of weeks, but he hasn't been on the show in about maybe 2 months, maybe a month. He's been going through some shit. He's having some health stuff. He's having some life stuff. If you follow the Discord, he's talking about it, but he's doing okay. It's not like he's like in hell. He was in worse hell last year, but he's been going through it. In fact, if you look at the Bitch and Moan channel in Discord, whatever it is, it's going around, and a lot of people are getting hit with the shit wind right now. I haven't seen this much fuckery since the great fucking of 2020. Like, I haven't seen this many people, like, just having a bad time. We lost a bird. Siege lost a cat. People got, like, diagnosed with this and that. Some other person's poor soul mother is dying potentially. I hope not. We're crossing them, just sending them good love and vibes, and maybe taking a collection plate if they need it. You know, it's just, you know, and someone else lost their job, and it's just, oh, it's going around right now. It's really fucking going around. So
do you still want me to stay with you on the line after we're done?
Maybe for a minute. I have to go call some people, like I have family that I have to talk to, but
sure, no problem.
I wanted to get off at 12, but I was getting off on the conversation instead. So, you know, so you know me, I can't shut up.
Yes. It's all good, man.
All right, guys. So everybody, if you want to watch Maiden's channel, it's in the description of this video. You can find it very easily. It should be the first thing. If it's not there, you can just literally type into the YouTube search bar, Maiden Liberty, all one word, and it'll pop up pretty much the first thing with a, I forget who that is, but it's someone that's not you, I guess, as the
No, it's Underworld, man.
It's Underworld, that's right.
Underworld, Mushin.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Underworld movie, but I really wasn't. I don't know what it was. I think it was like Matrix with vampires and werewolves. It just didn't hit right for me. I'm more of a Lestat vampire fan.
Okay. No, more action.
Yeah, I mean, Blade is where I draw. Blade is the pinnacle of the not, like, that's the ending for me of, like, where I draw the line, but that's also the baddest of the ass. Like, it's like so Lestat to Blade and then no further. Like, right there, stop.
Then I don't think you would even like to watch True Blood then.
Yeah. I love What We Do in the Shadows because it's like a great satire of everything. And it's also a little accurate in some, especially the Psy-Vampire part. That I love Colin. Fucking Colin is exactly what some Psy-Vampires can be. I know a few like that, actually.
That's awesome.
Eddie's like that. Eddie's like, I'm a Psy-Vampire and I'm basically Colin. I'm like, yeah, I get that.
Awesome. So awesome stream, man. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank McKenna. I'm going to say the name wrong, but I know what you're trying to say. Thank you for introducing the idea. Even though, Maiden, I've seen you around all the time, I just never put two and two together.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Mina. Thank you very much.
So thank you, guys, and thank you for everybody who was new. I saw some people going, "Oh my God, this guy knows what he's talking about." Yo, fuck you. I'm just riffing, guys. If I know something, it's just because I listen to the right people. That's all. Well, all right. I should toot my own horn a little louder, but thank you very much. I'm not really that humble. I do think very highly of myself. Anyway, guys, I love you all, especially all my regulars. It's nice to see you all again. And once again, to the illustrious Skeleton Power, thank you very much for that generous donation. All right. That's it. We're done. Good night, everybody.
Peace out.
Mind the shadows. Peace out. Okay.